out of Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Stephen Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Welcome everyone to the Spotlight here on Fightful. I'm Jeremy Lambert. That's Stephen Jensen. And shout out as always to Big Dick MLJ for the intro. It is Thursday, December 19th. We got a lot to talk about in the world of wrestling. But first, Stephen Jensen, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Hope everyone in the chat's doing well. Happy Thursday, everyone. I'm looking forward to getting through today and tomorrow. I got another week off work starting next week for the holidays. So, yeah, all's good on my end. And the Minnesota Vikings are 12-2. So, pretty big deal. They're playing pretty good. People are actually taking them seriously now. So, I even hear some people saying they might even be in the Super Bowl. They might even, they might make some moves here and get far in the playoffs or even make the Super Bowl. So, it's good to see some people finally giving them some love and some respect. But yeah, man, that's pretty much all that's going on my end. Like I was, I was off work for a few days last week, and it was such bad timing. I talked about this on the Weekender, but it was bad timing that there happened to be actual wrestling shows in Atlanta the last, couple weeks, and I just had the worst timing. Like GCW was here 2 weeks ago, get the flu. Can't make it. It was a total bummer. Y'all know I love GCW. I really wanted to go to that show at Center Stage. And then the next week, I get invited to come out to Center Stage again for the West Side Gun Show, the Heels Have Eyes event. And I had a vacation already set. Like the way that my shoot job works, I'm sure other people that watch this can relate to this, that work corporate jobs, but I have to do a vacation bidding like for the next, like I've already done my 2025 time off, like already for next year. You know what I mean? So like the days off that I'm getting right now, I requested a year ago. So like I already had the time off. So I was like, damn, I can't go to the West Side Gun Show. Then like TNA was the next night at Center Stage. I had 3 major wrestling events at Center Stage in 2 weeks. And for various reasons, couldn't go to any of them. So that was kind of a bummer because there was a lot of good stuff in my area. But outside of that, man, I really can't complain. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, preparing for Christmas. We're less than a week away from Christmas. So busy time, as always, around here. But, doing everything again.
What are the big, without giving anything away, I don't know if your kids ever watch this stuff, but what are kind of like...
Did they watch this?
what are maybe, I'm so bad about it because I almost said her name out loud. I know we try to keep people's names.
Yes, please. Please don't say all 12 of their names.
No, what are the I like to keep people's privacy that want their privacy. I can respect that. What are some of the presents that are like the big presents this year that like people are asking for, the kids are asking for?
A lot of stuff to just terrorize me, typically.
Just terror, okay. Just terrorizing stuff. To terrorize you.
Yeah.
Is it more like electronics type stuff, or there's still like toys that people want, or like?
I mean, there's 12 of them, Jensen. We got a lot. We got a range here of stuff to get. Yes.
I'm just curious because I don't have kids. I'm a big kid myself. Obviously, I collect. I've bought myself so many action figures and stuff this holiday season for myself, for my own collection. And I have a nephew who's like 8 or so. So I buy him some stuff because I know he's into Pokemon and Minecraft. So it's like, that's pretty easy. I know his favorite Pokemon is Venusaur. So like I can just find that kind of stuff. And like Minecraft, I feel like pretty much anything that looks like Minecraft, they're going to like. Anything that looks like blocky like Minecraft. So that's kind of easy. But yeah, I didn't know. I just kind of assumed like that stuff has gotten so like technology based, like kids on, growing up on iPads and that kind of stuff, that like maybe toys weren't as popular as they used to be. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like that has to be like an evergreen thing, right? Like, I mean, there's always going to be like that big toy, like what was Jingle All the Way, Turbo Man. There's always going to be like some sort of Turbo Man every season that the kids want. So anyway, we'll talk about wrestling. I know people want to hear us talk about wrestling, but it is the holiday season. I hope everyone has a happy holidays. And this is the last time you're going to hear us before. Well, I don't know. Do we have another show before the new year? We'll be off next week. I'll be out of town, and it'll be the day after Christmas. But you won't hear from us a couple weeks, so happy holidays in advance to everybody.
Let's get into the spotlights here. Yes, we are off next week. Now, I think that because January 1st is Wednesday, so yeah, this will be the last time people hear us in 2025. Well, hear you. I'm still here way too often. But
yeah,
doing this show together.
Yeah, you'll hear me on the Weekender. I'll still have that show for y'all. Both, well, this Sunday, and then I guess that'd be the last Sunday of the year. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but anyway, I don't plan on stopping the Weekender because I can record that on my own time. So they should those should be available for y'all on either Sunday or Monday. It really just depends on the indie schedule and stuff like that. Like if there's any big the problem with the Weekender, just full disclosure, and I think I mentioned this often enough that people probably understand at this point. My goal is to always get the Weekender out on Sundays for y'all over on FightfulSelect.com, but they've been running a lot of, like, whether it's DPW or GCW or like IWTV, like a lot of these companies right now have been running like Sunday night shows. So I can't record the Weekender until those shows air because it's like I would feel bad. I can't have like a DPW event air and then not cover it when I know it's like Violence is Forever is one of the tag belts, and like there's all these banger matches, Adam Priest and LeBron Cazone. Like it's like I gotta wait on those so I can get you guys those results too. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's on Mondays instead of Sundays. That's the only reason why. Please subscribe to FightfulSelect.com. Let's talk about some wrestling, Jeremy.
I need to.
Psst. I see Darby.
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
Had a misclick there.
Yeah, I was like, what was that?
I was moving my mouse, and then I guess I tapped it too hard on the other video, so that's why it went to the In the Weeds overrun video there. WWE Saturday Night's main event. Kevin Owens won the undisputed WWE Championship. He hit a package piledriver on Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes could not continue, so they awarded Kevin Owens the undisputed WWE Championship. He is the new champion. That's how I saw this. Well, I had to watch it online because for some reason they didn't show this on television.
Yeah, so that I feel like was kind of a miss. I don't know why they didn't show it on TV.
The television viewing audience didn't deserve to see it, Jensen.
Oh, we aren't worthy. Is that yeah? Okay, so contrary to what people are probably going to expect me to say, I'm not going to do what everyone thinks I'm going to do. Freak out, man.
Well, yeah, because Cody just keeps winning. Hello, Cody wins. Like, what do you have to be mad about?
Yeah, he keeps winning, bro. It's tight. So Cody gets the win, and what I thought was a solid match. I mean, I let me say this: I thoroughly enjoyed Saturday Night's main event. I know that a lot of people, Piledriver finishers with me. Who's coming with me, man? I saw like a little criticism online about people being like, well, this is like a glorified Raw or SmackDown. I didn't really feel like a pay-per-view. And it's like, well, it pretty much is a glorified Raw or SmackDown, and it's on network television. So it is not a pay-per-view. But it did feel like a big event. And it was like, I thought it was really well presented. Like, I really liked having Jesse Ventura back, even though he was like a little out of the loop on like some people's names and stuff. But I like how he like immediately established himself as a heel again on the show. Like he would like right
with a baby face.
Well, depending to you, yes. But I thought it was great because we all knew him as the heel manager back in the day, or sorry, the heel commentator back in the day. And like when he had his return to the company and his return on SMNE, I thought it was cool because like they gave him his flowers. He said he was like happy to be back, and it was like a good-hearted moment right when he arrived, and then he immediately started healing on people on the microphone. And I was like, there we go. All right, I like this, and I like how they brought him on commentary for the main event and stuff. So overall, I thoroughly enjoyed Saturday Night's main event, and Yeah, I thought the main event was great. I thought it was pretty much exactly what it needed to be. It was a really solid match between Cody and Owens. Cody winning, I'm all for, obviously. I know there was a lot of people that thought there was a chance Kevin Owens could possibly win this thing. And it kind of feels like both sides of the argument kind of won in this scenario, because as a Cody Rhodes fan, a lifelong hardcore fan of the roller coaster, and yes, he cheated, but he didn't introduce the chair to the match.
He didn't have to use it. Could have had good moral values.
Right, or he's just kind of like...
He knocked out the referee both times. What was that all about?
Okay. So, unintentionally. He's... but,
I think you could have gotten away with unintentionally if he didn't then cheat afterwards and use the chair afterwards. Then I could buy it as unintentional. But it seemed like this was a clear plan on Cody's part to take out the referee and then use that chair.
I think it was unintentional to take the referee out, but it was intentional to use the chair, but it was the convenience of the chair already being in the right place at the right time. And he was like, all right, you're going to get...
And the convenience of the referees being knocked out.
Of course.
A lot of conveniences.
Well, and so there's a lot of stuff that's interesting about the aftermath of this, right? Because so Cody retains, obviously I'm good with that. And I'm going to be incredibly biased the entire time Cody's the champion. Everyone already knows that about me. I don't want him to lose the title ever. I want him to be the forever champion. I hope he holds the title to WrestleMania. I hope he retains the title at WrestleMania. I hope he goes into WrestleMania 42 and 43 and 44. I don't want him ever losing the WWE championship. So you're never going to catch me, rooting against him, picking against him. Don't gamble, but betting against him.
You'll never catch Jensen in the next man's neck tattoo.
Yes, fair. Exactly. Anyways, speaking of Cena coming back soon. That's not a topic, but I'm excited for that because I think we're definitely getting Cody versus Cena at a big show probably pretty soon. But anyway, sorry to stay on topic. So Kevin Owens attacks Cody after the match. This doesn't happen on air, but he picks Cody up and hits him with a package Piledriver, which we've talked about here on this show. When he pile drove Randy Orton, we talked about it here like the next week. I was like, I guarantee you at some point he's hitting that package Piledriver. I figured it was going to be at WrestleMania, like in kind of like how Sami Zayn hit the brainbuster at WrestleMania against Gunther. I felt like Kevin was probably saving that for Mania, but he hasn't hit that move since his pre-WWE career, which at this point is like a decade ago. And that was confusing that he used it off air, unless the WWE doesn't want, like, it's like one of those things, right, where it's like if they didn't want people seeing it, they wouldn't have put it on WWE.com. They wouldn't have talked about it on Raw, showed it on Raw. Like, they're obviously going to highlight it majorly tomorrow night on SmackDown. So that was my only thing, was like when they initially did it off air, I was like, oh, maybe this is kind of like a curb stomp situation from years ago where they're like, oh, we don't really want this move seen on TV because like a lot of kids might try to replicate this. This is a super dangerous move that's actually really easy to do. But I feel like that isn't the case on the flip side, because once again, they've aired it all over the place and it's part of the storyline. So that was really the only thing that was confusing, was him doing this move for the first time in a decade off air. But also I'm not deaf. I'm not blind. I'm very biased, but I'm not deaf or blind. There is a portion of the fan base that was chanting and cheering for Owens to do that. Like, that we're really into Owens package power driving Cody. I don't think that's necessarily the fans turning on Cody. This isn't like an AEW type situation where, like, the fans have turned on Cody and it's the Codyverse all over again or anything like that. But I think it's more a testament to how much the fans like Kevin Owens and how good of a job Kevin Owens is doing, because he's a phenomenal heel. He's always been a better heel than babyface, at least in my opinion. But I think it's pretty. I think most people would agree with that. He's a phenomenal heel, and I know he said it during the. There's been this discourse about using the term moveset because of that Rosenberg and CM Punk interaction, and I loved how during that press conference yesterday for Netflix, how Kevin Owens said in the microphone, "I have the best moveset," because I'm not even going to disagree with that. Kevin Owens might actually have the best moveset in wrestling, or at least in the WWE. So I'm a Kevin Owens fan. Like, Kevin Owens is in my top, probably 5 or so performers of my favorites in the WWE myself. He just isn't number one like Cody is. So I understand why people like Kevin Owens. I thought the package Piledriver was great to see back, because obviously I feel like we're going to see that, used as a move to win a major match at some point in the near future for him, probably. And I absolutely love that they brought back the Winged Eagle Championship, and that Kevin is carrying that around now.
WWE Shop Winged Eagle Championship.
It is weird that they're using a replica title. I understand that they can't use the one with the WWF logo on it anymore, but it is clearly a replica title. So that, excuse me, that is a little strange. They couldn't have just like made like a more like legitimate version of it. But nonetheless, it is cool seeing Kevin Owens carrying that around and claiming to be the real world champion. It's interesting. I think it's good television and it's a good story. And I love both guys. Like I said, I love Cody and I love Kevin Owens. So like, I liked all of this. I thought this was all really, really good. Cody retains everything we got afterwards. I'm a fan.
I think the fans are turning on Cody Rhodes because they recognize he is not this virtuous hero that he portrays himself to be. He had to cheat in this match. He's lying about Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens was right about Cody. Cody's a terrible friend. He got Randy Orton nearly paralyzed. He teamed with Roman Reigns when he didn't have to, when he inserted himself into the bloodline business when he didn't need to. He teamed with a guy who tried to end the career of his best friend. Alleged best friend. Former best friend. Because Kevin Owens saw through what Cody is doing and what Cody is about. So yeah, the fans are turning on him. He did deserve it. He did deserve to get that Piledriver. He deserves to lose the title. Kevin Owens should be the champion. He's rightful in claiming to be the true world champion. And when Cody comes back, he's going to be in for a rude awakening, because I think the fans will continue to realize Kevin Owens is right. And Cody is not an upstanding citizen. He's not a role model. He's just another Hulk Hogan.
Dude, okay, that's going a little too far. He's another Hulk Hogan when it comes to on screen in the WWE storylines, maybe. So do you think that this is going to happen again on Netflix, or do you think if that was happening, they'd already be advertising it?
I don't think they're doing a rematch on Netflix. No.
That's already stacked enough that they don't really need to do that. But Cody's obviously going to be on the show, so
I assume that's like Cody's return. I don't think they're gonna. I mean, they're already advertising Cody, but I don't think they're gonna. They've advertised him in like press releases and stuff. They haven't advertised him like on the show type thing. I think that's gonna like be his return. I think he's gonna be out until then.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that, of course, he got stretchered out after this too. But you know how I was telling you the other week that my my buddy has he's like a cousin or a nephew through marriage that just recently got into wrestling, and he's super into Cody and CM Punk. Went to wrestling. I talked about him the other week. He was texting my friend, who was then texting me, asking me for updates on how Cody was, because he was very concerned about Cody being taken away on the stretcher. So I had to kind of explain that I didn't go as far as MJF on Dynamite last night and drop the Santa isn't real bomb on people, but I did have to explain to him that Cody was indeed okay, and not to worry too much about
why. No, what'd you do that for? You should have been like, I don't know, man. You got to keep watching WWE. They said he's got a cervical fracture contusion.
That actually would have been, if I played into it, that actually would have been pretty funny. I would have felt bad though, because this is a very well-intentioned guy, that's asking these questions that I would have felt bad lying to him.
Don't ruin the mystique for him.
I didn't say like wrestling's fake, but I was like, Cody's gonna be okay. Like, Cody's fine. He's fine. He's okay. He'll be back. But he was like legitimately worried. So
Cody's gonna go home and take his vitamins and say his prayers, and he's gonna be fine.
oh my god, quit making these Hogan comparisons. There's people in the chat right now talking about Cody gonna walk out with Colby Covington since Chi-Town's first. That was a disaster. We're not gonna talk too much about that.
Colby Covington.
But that whole thing was like Colby usually comes out to Kurt Angle's theme song, and this time he just chose to come out to Real American, which was flat because the fans just like weren't into it. And Hulk Hogan came out with Colby, and Hogan, say what you want. Obviously, people can have whatever opinions they want on Hulk Hogan. I totally understand. But even just like on a physical level, like he can't move. Like there was someone spotting him. Like there was someone behind him making sure he wasn't falling over because like he can't even walk. And he was trying to like wave the American flag behind Colby while Real American was playing. It was really embarrassing for everybody involved. And then Colby got his ass kicked. I mean, it wasn't even close. And I don't like talking about gambling too much on here because I don't know how it works with like our sponsors for Fightful and whatnot. But like, let me just put it this way. Had the referee stopped that fight a few minutes earlier, I would have won a lot of money because I had a parlay that involved that fight ending in a certain amount of time. And that should have been stopped way before it was because Colby's eye was completely screwed. So anyway, that whole thing was an embarrassment to Colby, to Hulk Hogan, and to UFC in general, that whole main event situation. And nothing against Buckley. Buckley went in there and fought his ass off and destroyed Colby Covington. But anyways, yeah, that's... I don't know. Any other thoughts on, or do you want to keep trolling me about how happy you are about Cody Rhodes? Like, do people in here actually think? Matthew Hooks, this is interesting. He says Cody has always been the heel. He's selfish. He's in everyone's business. He thinks he's always right. He's a jerk. That's the whole story. That I think is the story from the perspective of the haters, which I think they are playing into. Like I'm not
perspective of people who watch the television show. You can go back to WrestleMania 39 when Cody wants to put Sammy and hey guys, be friends. No, get out of here, you dork. This has nothing to do with you.
Oh no, I listen, I agree with like what Piledriver's saying and what you're saying as far as like it would be very easy to turn Cody heel or explain Cody as a heel. Like I understand what y'all are saying. My thing is like clearly Kevin Owens is the bigger heel of the two, even though he's doing things some things that the fans like attacking Cody after the match and with a package Piledriver and putting him in a stretcher. Because he's a sore loser.
Why does that make him a heel?
Sore loser.
Well, he got screwed. He lost because the other guy cheated.
It's his fault the chair was there.
It's not his fault. It's Cody's fault that he took out the referee. Twice. 2 referees. Cody didn't have to use the chair. That's victim blaming, Jensen. Don't do that.
No.
Don't victim
You're
blame.
making this sound so much more everything's so more serious than okay, so listen, my whole point honestly is that
and not only
do you really think they're turning Cody heel before, like if The Rock comes back before WrestleMania, you really think that Cody's going to be the heel against The Rock? Do you really think Cody's going to be the heel again? The only person Cody's going to be heel against in any of this is if they want to make him a heel against Cena whenever that happens. Because like Cena's going to be massively cheered as a babyface during his retirement run. But I don't see Cody being a heel really against. I mean, maybe Roman, depending on how they play it. If they do Cody and Roman again and the fans are behind Roman enough versus Cody. Listen, I want to make this clear. I'm not even against the idea of a Cody Rhodes heel turn. Like, I think Cody as a heel would actually be incredibly entertaining. Like, I actually
dye his hair again.
With dark again?
Yeah.
Well, basically undye his hair. Go back to his natural hair color.
I thought then his natural hair color was blonde. So you're telling me he's lying about his hair color? That's not his natural hair color?
You know that, right? You're trolling.
No, I thought Cody was some upstanding citizen. I didn't realize he was just lying about the color of his hair and getting kids to dye their hair now.
We talked about this the other week, that whole concern about, oh, there's all these kids dyeing their hair. Yeah, we lived through it and grew up on M&M. We all put lemon juice in our hair and hydrogen peroxide in our hair and try to be like the real Slim Shady, okay? Like, this isn't a new thing for kids.
I thought it was his natural hair color.
Jeremy,
what else is he gonna lie about?
There's not. I love all these people and they everyone's what a liar, what a farce. Oh, guys, do y'all not understand also that like heel Cody Rhodes is probably even more entertaining than babyface Cody Rhodes to me? I love babyface Cody Rhodes because of like how he's the face of the company and how all the kids love him, and he's like this major superstar now that he wasn't years ago. But heel Cody to me is like the funniest thing in the world. Like, I think he's hilarious as a heel. So and you know that he's itching to do that eventually too. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what you really want me to say, because no matter what I say, you're going to have there's always going to be a way to turn this into, yeah, well, Cody's the bad guy.
Well, if Cody wasn't the bad guy, I wouldn't be able to turn everything into Cody's the bad guy.
He's not the bad guy. And as of right now, he might eventually become a bad guy. But as of right now, Kevin Owens is clearly the bad guy. Who do you think Cody wrestles next? If it isn't a rematch with Owens, who do you think? Because, I mean, this is like, how does it not end up with another rematch against Owens when Owens is walking around with a title belt, calling himself the champion?
Right now, he needs to wrestle the people at the hospital and get himself healthy. Okay, why are you worried about him returning to the ring? He could die. Do you really care about Cody's health?
Well, once Cody fights for what's right, fights for his life, and gets out of the hospital, then he'll be ready to, come crashing down. It'll hurt inside for Kevin Owens.
It's gonna hurt Cody when Kevin Owens gets his hands on him again.
The only thing that I'm concerned about with Kevin Owens coming out of all this is if they do another Cody match, like, he's not gonna win. So, like, I think they need to, because Cody's not losing the title heading into WrestleMania.
Why?
It's not happening. What do you mean why? Because he's the biggest star in the company. He's gonna main event WrestleMania.
Since when did Cody Rhodes become Roman Reigns?
When Roman Reigns is gone, Cody is the top guy, and right now Roman Reigns is preoccupied with other stuff.
But Roman Reigns is still there. Roman Reigns is the top guy.
I think that's arguable at this point. Although I'm not going to argue that Roman Reigns. I mean, I think it's arguable, but it's not worth arguing, if that makes sense. Because like you can make plenty of arguments that Roman Reigns is still the top guy. I get that. I'm not gonna downplay
the biggest argument is he's the top guy. That's it.
I don't know. It's up for debate. I think if you asked the majority of the kid WWE fans, they would say Cody. And I think that's the most important demographic that WWE has.
Why? Why are the kids the most important demographic?
Because
they can't spend money. They need their parents' money.
Their parents can spend money for them. I think it's more likely that parents are going to spend money on wrestling stuff than, like, I mean, once you get to like my age, you might be more likely, if you're still like a hardcore wrestling fan, if you have expendable income like I do, like, buying whatever memorabilia or whatever you want as an adult. But there's that age gap between, being a kid and not being expected to pay for stuff on your own. And then there's like that gap of like the next, 15 years or whatever, where I don't think that those people are as likely to spend money on wrestling stuff, because you're having to deal with like college, the real world, bills for the first time, all that kind of stuff. Wrestling stuff probably isn't very much of a priority. But the reason it's important too is because there's always there's a never ending influx of kid fans. Like, there's always going to be 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds. There's always going to be new groups of those ages of kids discovering wrestling, becoming fans of wrestling, and hopefully sticking around for years. And I think a lot of the reason that there's been an influx of that is specifically Cody. Like, he's their superhero. He's their, and Roman was a bad guy this whole time up until recently, but yeah. So I think if you ask, I think Cody is the most valuable person they currently have, because I think that he's incredibly important for the kid audience, and he's like the guy that they've wanted since Cena hasn't been full time, like who's for the kids. But eventually, I think he'll rip their hearts out. I think, unlike Cena, Cody actually will turn heel at some point, and that'll be humongous.
Yeah, because He's not true to himself like John Cena was.
Do the work, finish the story. Hustle, loyalty, respect.
If Cody was true to himself and true to his beliefs and true to his words, he wouldn't turn heel. But he's not, because Kevin Owens is right.
Okay. We will agree to disagree. Listen, I've said it already. I like the story. I like the package Piledriver. I like Kevin Owens. I like Cody more. I'm glad he's a champion still. I hope he never loses the title. I hope we're right here on this same show in December of 2025 and 2026 and 2027, and we're sitting right here, just two curmudgeons at that point in our 40s, and we'll just be sitting here going, "Yep, Cody's still the champion." What else you got, Jeremy? Cody's still the champion.
If Cody is still the champion and doesn't lose the title by December 2025, we're never doing this show again.
Mark Jeremy's words on that. If someone clip this, if Cody is still the champion this time next year, the show is going to be discontinued.
At some point, he's got to lose this friggin' title.
Jeremy will quit the show before then. I think if Cody's still the champion that long, you're just going to be like, I don't want to do this anymore.
It's got to lose the title at some point.
Right,
you know it should beat him for the title. CM Punk.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. You're so predictable, Jeremy.
What do you think of do you think Cody Rhodes has the move set to beat CM Punk?
Way better, way more believable moveset than CM Punk does. Way more believable. I think it's more believable to see Cody Rhodes jumping off the top rope backwards, hitting Cody cutters, than it is to see CM Punk doing spinning back fists and Anaconda Vices. Anyways, I love this CM Punk Seth Rollins stuff. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I loved their interaction at that Netflix event yesterday, where Seth Rollins said he was the bootlicker now, bitch, and Punk has no comeback for that kind of stuff because he knows deep down that's exactly what's happening. He crawled back. He has no other options. CM Punk's a model citizen. Of course he is, because if he gets fired from the WWE, he can't go back to the UFC or AEW. It's over. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's also kind of funny to watch people be able to get free shots on him that he's been able to get free shots off for years and years and years without any ramifications. These people like Seth Rollins now can say whatever they want right to his face because they're, one, not intimidated by CM Punk because they know he can't actually fight in real life. And two, this makes the storyline 1,000 times better because we know Seth Rollins legitimately doesn't like CM Punk and vice versa. And I think their match is going to be awesome. Like, as much as I talk trash about CM Punk, Phil Brooks, you kind of the human behind CM Punk, I think that the payoffs for the stuff he does is always top tier on the actual show. I was there live at Bad Blood for the Hell in a Cell match against Drew McIntyre. It was easily the best match of the pay-per-view. I thought it was awesome. I loved that match. There's a lot of CM Punk matches I love. I absolutely loved his dog collar match with MJF in AEW. There's a lot he did in AEW that I thought was great on screen. I think that CM Punk versus Seth Rollins on Netflix is going to be a banger. I expect them to probably run it back at WrestleMania. It won't be a one-time match. It'll probably be a series of matches like it was for McIntyre. So yeah, I think this is great because if you love CM Punk, you're going to ride or die with him no matter what, and you're not going to like the way Seth's talking to him, and you're going to feel a certain way about it, and you're going to defend him no matter what. If you're a CM Punk hater or a Seth Rollins fan, this is awesome because you get to see Seth Rollins basically call CM Punk out for his own hypocrisy. CM Punk went from telling The Miz to suck blood-covered dicks and telling MJF to do, go to the WWE so he can do a 2-for-1 extravaganza on Netflix or on a Peacock. And now look, CM Punk's literally doing exactly the stuff that he was roasting a few years ago because once again, he had no other option. But it's great to see Seth Rollins play that into the story, see them go head-to-head, forehead-to-forehead. It feels like there's real heat, real animosity, and I think the match is going to be an absolute banger. I really hope that Seth Rollins wins, but once again, I think that both guys are going to win throughout this feud. And ultimately, I think CM Punk will probably wind up winning the feud, even though I feel like Rollins deserves it. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a big plan right now to get CM Punk to main event one of the nights of WrestleMania, and one of those nights would probably be for one of the world championships. And to his credit, I think that CM Punk was going to main event night one against Seth Rollins last year before CM Punk got hurt, and now they've had to wait an extra year. But it's CM Punk's biggest goal. Regardless of how I feel about him and stuff, the one thing CM Punk hasn't accomplished in his career that he wants to is main eventing WrestleMania, and I think he's going to achieve that this year. He's going to main event probably night one of WrestleMania, but more so, I'm honestly happy for Seth in all of this, because I think this is something that Seth has wanted since, like, now that Punk's back. He clearly didn't want him back, but it's like, okay, unlike in AEW, let's make money with this. Like, in AEW, they couldn't get CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny. Like, well, I guess CM Punk and Kenny apparently hashed it out, but they couldn't get CM Punk and the Young Bucks in a room together to just figure this out and make money with it on television. Whereas WWE is doing that. They're like, okay, you guys don't like each other. Like, Drew McIntyre legitimately didn't like CM Punk either, and they're like, you know what? Let's make a ton of money. Let's just make a ton of money with it. It is what it is. They're not going to fire CM Punk because I don't like him. Let's make a ton of money. So yeah, that's how I feel about all of it. How do you feel, Jeremy?
I thought the segment was fantastic. I like, especially when he has someone like Seth Rollins to play off of and kind of bite at. I can live without it. It's great to be alive in Boston. Hey, we're all. I don't need all that, but this is his thing. So sure. But when Seth's in the crowd and Punk's like, "Hey, you're up there with all the other CM Punk fans because that's where you belong." Everything. I thought that was a good line, and I thought Seth punched back. I thought Seth was good yesterday at the Netflix event as well, and they're gonna have what should be a good match. I expect it to be the first match of a handful of matches. I kind of think Seth is going to win this match, and I kind of think Seth is going to go on and win the title, and I think they will run it back at WrestleMania, and I think they'll run it back at WrestleMania for the title because Punk potentially wins the Rumble or wins the Elimination Chamber, and that's how Punk gets to the title match at WrestleMania. Because, in the lead up to this, Punk has said, I don't think about you. Like, okay, I'm glad you've been thinking about me for 6 months. I don't think about you. You got nothing I want. Now, obviously, they're still doing the match, but if Punk wins, he's kind of proven correct. Like, well, He beat him. Where do you go from here? Punk is on to kind of bigger and better things. But if Seth wins, and then Seth wins the title, well, now Punk has something that Seth has that he might want. He has reason to think about Seth again. And Seth can then troll him of, no, I already beat you. You're below me at this point. I don't need you. But if Punk wins Elimination Chamber, well, he's got no choice but to face him. That's the whole point of all of this. I still think Roman Reigns plays a big factor into everything they are doing, because throughout all of these other feuds, the central figure in a lot of this is still Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And that's why he's the biggest star in the company. But he's still the central figure in this. Cody and Kevin, what's their crux of their feud?
That Cody helped Roman.
Yes. Yeah. Punk and Seth. Punk teamed with Roman. That was something Seth did not do. Drew is involved in stuff. He's going after Jimmy. Attacking Jimmy, attacking Jay. Why? Because they teamed with Roman. Attacking Sammy because he teamed with Roman. Punk still has the favor from Paul Heyman, who is still aligned with Roman. I think whatever they decide to do with Roman, which I don't know what that is at this point, because I think there's many options on the table, and I think they are kind of waiting to see what the situation is with The Rock. And I don't think they're going to have full, I'm sure they have an idea. I'm sure they have an idea of what they want to do with Roman. But obviously, if The Rock comes in February 1st, slanging rock, and is like, I'm main eventing, what are they going to say? They're going to say, okay, guess we got to figure out our new plans because you're in the main event now. So, but Roman is still central to all of this, and where they go with him, because there's no shortage of options of Roman. You could tell me he's facing CM Punk. You could tell me he's facing Seth Rollins. You could tell me he's facing Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Drew McIntyre, Jacob Fatu. You could tell me he's facing any of these guys at WrestleMania and be like, Yeah, they can get there. They can make all that make sense. So that's really the central figure in this still. But if you're asking me, where I think specifically Punk and Seth are going right now, I think Punk loses on January 6th. Seth goes on, wins the world title, and Punk wins the Elimination Chamber. And that's your WrestleMania Night 1 main event.
I think all that makes sense. I could see that happening. But yeah, you're totally right about Roman being a central figure when it comes to all these different stories, which I think it's very, very smart how they're doing it. And I really love how they're doing this because they're making it to where like the bloodline didn't just split up and then have like the civil war or whatever. Like this group was around for years and terrorizing the rosters as the original bloodline. And I like how all these people that were wronged by them and had to fight them off and were suffering for all these years against them. Like that's not just being forgotten. Like it's being ignored and rectified when it comes to some people, like Cody helping, and then also CM Punk helping for his own prerogatives, like whatever that deal with him and Heyman is and stuff like that. But like, I really like how other people like Drew and Seth and stuff like that, they're like, they haven't forgotten. They're like, no, like just because Roman's acting like he's a good guy now, you like, why are you helping these people? Like Kevin Owens and stuff. Like, why are you helping these people? Like they made our lives hell for years and years and years. So I like that. I like that stories are still being set up that way. It's interesting how it flipped. And that's pro wrestling, right? That's people turning heel, turning babyface, stuff like that. But I think it's kind of cool. And it's interesting because obviously Roman is a babyface now and the original bloodline are babyfaces. So now the people that are helping the babyfaces are actually creating heels out of former, like it's like the baby faces that were fighting against the bad guys are now seen as the villains themselves because they won't help the former bad guys because why would they? Because they don't trust them still. I think like it makes logical sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's good. Well, it's good.
That's why Roman's the biggest star.
Do you think there's any chance of Roman wrestling on WrestleMania this year? Well, obviously he's going to wrestle WrestleMania, but like, do you think there's any chance of him not main eventing one of the nights? Like they have him on the show, but like he isn't in a main event?
No.
Opening match, Roman?
He ain't opening, brother.
No more for me, brother.
No, he's main eventing. He's probably main eventing night 2 against 2. Honestly,
probably Cody. It's probably him and Cody again.
I don't know. It's against whoever he wants. If we're being honest about things,
it's against whoever The Rock wants. This all depends on The Rock more than it even depends on Roman. This depends on The Rock more than anybody. If The Rock's not involved, I think they're going to do Cody and Roman again.
I think even if The Rock is involved, they might just do Rock and Roman.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why The Rock's involvement is the game changer when it comes to all of this. Because
so you think if The Rock's not involved, they're just going to do Cody and Roman again?
Yeah, because I don't think there's like a better option for Cody, unless they do like Cody and Punk or something like that. But like I think Punk is going to be, I think him and Rollins is like pretty clearly the move, unless they feel like they kind of like squeeze all the juice out of what they need to, like between Netflix and like Royal Rumble and Elimination Chamber out of that. And, like they want something different for Punk for Mania. But like Punk versus Cody at Mania, I think would be super interesting considering both of their histories and stuff. I'd be down for that. I would obviously despise the idea of CM Punk beating Cody for the title, but it would make it very interesting for me, obviously.
I think you run the risk with Rock and Roman. Maybe they're so hot right now that it's not going to matter. You run the risk of doing that for a third straight year and fans being like, okay, really? Like you have all this other stuff going on that most people would admit is very good. And we're either getting more of a Cody run after he's had the title for an entire year, or we're getting Roman with the title again. There's a real risk there.
I I don't disagree with that. I'm just trying to think of like what's the biggest match for everybody involved if The Rock isn't there, and that's just kind of what I feel like you would default to, because then you could say they main evented 3 WrestleManias against each other. They're 1-1 heading into the rubber match, and but I understand the other side of that too, like you just said. Henry in the chat says that would be Brock versus Roman 2.0. That I guess you could kind of be running the risk on, because like by the time, because they've main evented multiple WrestleManias against each other, and like especially by the last time it happened, both guys were getting booed pretty much. I mean, mainly Roman, because people were so sick of Roman as a babyface, but like Brock was also part-time, and that pissed people off too, that he wasn't around often and still getting the spots he was getting. And like Brock and Roman, it was cool to see like at first when you saw those guys in the ring against each other, but then it's like they did it so many times that it just. So I understand the concern about something like that too, of people maybe turning completely on the whole concept of those two guys wrestling each other because they want something different. Now, personally speaking, once again, just for the record, I think Cody versus The Rock is the move. But if The Rock's not going to be there, I don't necessarily want it to be Rock and Roman again. I just think that that's like one of the biggest matches that they can do. Honestly, if the more that I think about it, the most for WrestleMania, if The Rock is not involved, I would personally prefer if it was Cody versus Punk or Cody versus Cena. Depending on how Cena's presented, I would imagine that he's gonna have a really good run for this year. Like, I don't think he's gonna come in and be like losing every single match, or like, I think they're gonna make him look pretty strong. I just don't know if it's gonna be like the right time and place for him to be wrestling Cody at WrestleMania, depending on what else is going on. But I totally expect Cody and Cena to happen before Cena hangs the shoes or the boots up. So, would you agree with that? Do you think Cody and Cena or Cody and Punk would be good options for WrestleMania, like if The Rock's not involved?
Sure, but I think Punk and Roman is an option if The Rock's not involved.
That's also true. Honestly, I'd rather. It's pretty close. I would be about equally as interested to see Cody and Punk at Mania as I would Roman and Punk, but for different reasons. The things with CM Punk and Cody that interest me is that, obviously they were both previously in AEW. I don't think they're going to be like specifically talking about AEW, but you just kind of know tongue in cheek that like they have that history with one another. And obviously they knew each other 10 years ago when both guys were, in the WWE before both of them left and stuff like that. There's just a lot of meat on the bone for that. But as a CM Punk hater and a Cody Rhodes lover, it would be an interesting dynamic for me to watch play out. But as far as like actual story on TV, I think Roman and Punk would be better, because you have that history as well. Both guys' histories with Paul Heyman. CM Punk having the favor from Paul Heyman in his back pocket right now, and kind of the well he won't he, like what side is Paul Heyman going to take ultimately at the end of the day with these two guys and stuff. I think it's a lot more interesting on TV if you do CM Punk and Roman. So I'll agree with you on that. I'll say if The Rock's not involved, we go CM Punk and Roman Reigns, and then I guess would you go Cena and Cody?
I'm assuming you're putting the title on the line.
Yes, because this is the big thing, is like Cena could win, number 17.
I keep saying you don't need that at WrestleMania. WrestleMania is WrestleMania. You don't need Cena chasing number 17 at WrestleMania. You can boost a secondary pay-per-view with that.
But what if Cena wins? Because
sure,
I think
Cena wins.
I think Cena should win the title before he's done. I think he should be the record holder for his. I think he deserves it. I wouldn't be mad if Cena was the one to beat Cody.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that, but again, I don't think Cena needs that. I don't think Cena needs that accolade out of WrestleMania. It makes sense to do it at WrestleMania if he's going to win. I think you can boost.
Because then he can defend the title throughout the rest of his run, and then like whoever beats him at the end of the year, like he passes the torch. Like, you know what I mean? Like it kind of worked out really well.
I don't know if Cena needs to hold the title for the entire year of.
It would only be like April through December.
Right, that's still 3/4 of the year.
Yeah. They got 2 shows, 2 champions. I don't know. I'm just.
But if Roman Reigns is the other champion.
Yeah. Listen, man, I'm not booking the WWE. I'm just thinking out loud here.
Never going to have that title defended. Cena and Roman are your champion.
Well, no, Punk would maybe be the other champion.
Punk ain't beating Roman Reigns at night 2 of WrestleMania, brother.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not saying I would want to see it, but
Punk can have his night 1 victory over Seth Rollins and hey, happy-go-lucky. Roman Reigns ain't walking into night 2 and CM Punk winning that match. Roman Reigns is throwing dick on the table and saying, keep me strong. Remember, the goal is to keep Roman strong.
Yeah, you just flopping that right out on the table. That's so funny. Well, we can move on to the next topic, but yeah, this is all interesting stuff to think about, though. Except for
over 1 million fans and a great number in the demo tuned in. And it was a great show, and I think it's been a run of great shows.
Darby Allin and Will Ospreay in the Continental Classic. I think this was the television match of the year. That's what I teased it as in the little description there. I'm going to be honest. Can I remember every single match that took place on television this year? Absolutely not. I can barely remember the matches that took place on television a week ago. But I'm hard-pressed to remember a match that was as good as this that happened on TV this year. Can you think of anything?
Honestly, there's probably some like glaring omissions that like I'm just not thinking of, but like I don't I honestly, I mean, we're gonna have some recency bias because this happened last night, but I honestly, it really might have been the best TV match of the year. It really might have been. That match was awesome. I mean, even by the time that Darby did the coffin drop attempt on the apron and hit the corner of the apron, even by then it was like, damn, this match is fire. Like, why is Darby doing this to himself? But he enjoys it. He likes. It's like when I describe Darby Allin enjoying pain, it reminds me of like Breaking Bad. Whenever did you watch Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
When Saul becomes a character in Breaking Bad and he's setting up the thing for basically like the fake Heisenberg to get arrested, and it's like the guy who gets paid to go to jail. He's like, the way he's explaining it, he's like, what? He likes it. He likes jail. That's how I feel about Darby. It's like he likes pain. Like it's like don't feel bad for him. This is like what he lives for. He likes this. Dude, some of those moves and reversals were so sick. The way they did like the back-to-back moves that came out of like the Code Red, like the first one, Darby does a backflip out of it and gets hit with a hidden blade. That was awesome. And then the next sequence right after that was Darby reversing the Stormbreaker into a Code Red. That was so nasty. This was so good. I love the finish too, with Darby hitting the Scorpion Death Drop and then hitting the back-to-back coffin drops. And then the last one on commentary, I didn't quite catch it, but the last one on commentary, I think they were trying to make the point also that they landed like head-to-head on the final coffin drop for like just a little extra like reason for Ospreay to stay down. So this match was awesome. We can't sit here and go like hold for hold, move for move, like, break the whole thing down and do it justice. Like y'all need to watch the match if you missed it, but that was awesome. I think the right guy won too. Like this, we've been seeing Darby losing too often, and now I feel like, he beat Ospreay, which is a big win. He could have a big run going forward in the Continental Classic. He might even wind up winning the whole tournament. But they need to keep Darby. They need to get Darby looking stronger and keep him looking stronger coming out of all this, because obviously he's the one being kind of groomed to be the guy to defeat Jon Moxley for the AEW Championship. We've talked about that over the last few weeks too and stuff, though. Like, how's the timing work with him climbing the mountain soon and all this kind of stuff. But like, I think Darby's still clearly the guy that they're setting up for that. So a win like last night, not only getting the win, but having just an incredible match. I mean, it takes two to tango. Half of this is on Darby, half of this is on Will. Both guys are absolutely phenomenal. I didn't even mention what I put in the thumbnail, the the Styles Clash from the ring apron to the floor, which also it worked both ways because like it was a badass move, a badass visual. It made Darby look, awesome for like, getting in the ring before the 10 count, but it also led reason for like Ospreay to be selling the knee because of the way that he landed on it, which kind of like led into the finish too eventually. So like I thought this match was awesome. It was super, super well done. I'm a big fan of both guys. I'm glad Darby won.
The only match that I can recall that television wise, that's up there, Danielson and Hangman, which I believe was the Owen Hart tournament final. That match was on, I think, just Dynamite. That was an outstanding match. That was a television match. I can't remember if Alexander and Ospreay, because they had the pay-per-view match, but I feel like they had a television match as well, which was great.
I can't remember if that was TV. I definitely remember the pay-per-view match because I reviewed it.
This was like January, which again, I can't remember matches that happened a week ago. So asking me to remember something from January, but I feel like they had a television match as well. That was every bit as good as their pay-per-view match. Those are the only two like TV matches that I can recall off the top of my head. And yeah, recency bias because it was literally 12 hours ago. It sticks in my mind a little bit more. But if you're in the chat, let us know some television matches that you thought were outstanding this year. But I don't know which, if those matches are topping this Darby and Ospreay match. I feared for Darby on that coffin drop apron bump. He takes a crazy bump every single week. It's like, oh, this is a top 5 crazy Darby. Like the bump he took on Collision, I think it's Collision, maybe it was Dynamite last week, but maybe it's Collision 2 weeks ago, where he does the tope to the outside and goes crashing through the chair. Like that looked like it was every bit as painful as this coffin drop bump. People, will say, oh, Darby's got to slow down. He's going to hurt himself. I don't think people understand that Collision at GalaxyCon. So it was 2 weeks ago. I don't think people understand that one, Darby is made of rubber and I'm not sure he can actually get hurt. And two, like he actually puts a lot of like care and like therapy into his body. Like he's in the cryo chamber, he's doing the plunges, he's doing all the stretching and the yoga and everything. Like he does all that so he can go out there and then basically ruin himself in these wrestling matches. But I don't know if you saw that clip. He was at Nitro Circus just doing a elbow drop off a skate ramp through a table. Just no reason, just doing it. But he's clearly made of something different that most human bodies are not made of. Bless him, because it makes for an entertaining wrestler. I thought Darby winning was the right call. I figured he would win because Ospreay was undefeated in the tournament, and I didn't think Ospreay was going to run through everybody. I figured at some point he was going to lose, and Darby, because he lost earlier, because he lost the match to Brody King, was like, well, Darby's probably got to get a big win in this tournament. So it made sense that Darby won this match. But like, if you haven't seen it, go out of your way to watch it. I would like more of this from AEW. I think the Continental Classic over the past couple of shows have really picked up. Their bread is buttered with the pro wrestling. It's where the best wrestle. That's their tagline. They do outstanding wrestling matches. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think they can do a better job of just highlighting how good these matches are instead of saying like, oh, this match is awesome, we're seeing great. Like, do more of that. Darby's going to wrestle again on Saturday. He's going to face Claudio on Saturday. Ospreay's going to face Ricochet on Saturday. Talk them up. Talk about, like, they went through this insane match on Wednesday. Here they are on Saturday doing it all over again. You're not going to see this anywhere else. Don't downplay that kind of stuff. Like, talk that kind of stuff up and be like, yeah, these guys are on a different level. It's okay to do that. It's not a shot at a different wrestling company or anything like that. It's literally telling you what you're seeing on screen. Like, this is where the best is. We have the best wrestlers because they do what you saw on Wednesday, and here they are on Saturday doing it all over again. You don't see this anywhere else, which WWE is doing great things. You don't see these kind of matches in WWE. You don't see these kind of matches in TNA, ROH. Certainly not on a week to week like AEW is giving you, and certain wrestlers like Ospreay, like Darby, like Claudio, who are competing in the Continental Classic, give you week to week. Talk that up. Don't downplay it.
I couldn't agree more. I'm right there with you. For what it's worth, I thought Dynamite overall last night was a really good show. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was really good matches and also really entertaining segments that we're going to talk about a little bit here in a second too. I mean, just the point about Darby before we move on. I've talked about this on the show before, but this is just to prove a point as far as Darby Allin and who he is and who he's always been. The first time I ever saw Darby Allin wrestle was I can't remember the year, but it was probably 2017 or something like that, maybe 2018. I was at a high school gym in Chattanooga, and he wrestled Joey Janela in front of a few hundred people. A good indie show for the SCI, but like in the grand scheme of things, pretty small show. This is years before AEW was even a thing. And I'll never forget Darby Allin and Joey Janela going out there in this high school gym. And during that match, we've seen Darby do this on AEW programming since, but like he got his hands duct taped behind his back by Janela and did a tope suicida to the outside with his hands duct taped and like landed on his head. You know what I mean? I was like, what in the world are we watching right now? Like, this guy is insane. Then they did the spot where like Janela did a front flip and like landed on the chair. And I was like, I can't believe what I'm witnessing here. Like in a high school, like I'd been going to some indie shows around Nashville and stuff. And I was like, I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. And Darby's just always been that guy. I've talked about it before where I saw Darby Allin in person WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans years ago. WrestleMania 30. No, maybe they were WrestleMania 34. It's so wild that they went back so quick. But WrestleMania 34 was where I was hanging out with some people that were friends with Darby, and Darby was there, and I witnessed him literally skateboard into the abyss in downtown New Orleans by himself. And I was like, this guy's insane. Like, this guy just all like this, there's no, this isn't a gimmick. Like this guy, like this.
He gets hit by buses on his days off,
right? For funsies. I'm kidding about that, obviously, but the thing is, like, the last thing I want to happen to this guy is like something actually bad happens. But he's the kind of guy where it's like, I honestly think that's how he wants to go out. Is like it would. He's the most reckless person I think I've ever seen in wrestling, but he's so fun to watch. You know, it's the closest thing we have to like almost like a Jeff Hardy. Like when we were growing up, we had Jeff Hardy who was doing, you know, even to this day, if you're not even a wrestling fan and you're our age, most people still know who Jeff Hardy is, even if you don't know anything about wrestling, because they're like, oh yeah, dude, like the flips off the ladders. You know what I mean? Like he was kind of like the hero stuntman of like an entire generation. And that's what Darby Allin is to this next generation we're witnessing right now. So I got nothing but love and respect for Darby Allin. Like I think that the guy really puts it on the line for us, and I love that he's tied to Sting, and they're incorporating, you know, the death drop, and it's Showtime, and like he's on screen, he's son of Sting, right? We've seen the actual sons of Sting involved as well, but like Sting passed the torch to Darby, and I'm glad that they're actually doing something with that.
The other AEW spotlight is this MJF segment. You want to talk about this,
dude? Well, so I'm Jewish, so first of all, seeing MJF in like the Hanukkah gear, like the Hanukkah suit and all that stuff is just, I love that. I thought him talking about Santa not being real and all this stuff. I just think that this was the reason I wanted to talk about this is because y'all know how I feel about this whole MJF, Adam Cole, Devil, Undisputed Kingdom story. I think this has been one of the biggest misses in wrestling, maybe wrestling history, but definitely in recent memory. This has like been just the flop of all flops, considering how much time they put into the reveal of the Devil, both guys being off TV, the whole thing cooling down, them having a flip-flop, who's heel, who's babyface, how obvious it is that the Undisputed Kingdom is definitely going to be turning on Adam Cole in this match. I mean, that's clear as day that that's going to be happening. But in MJF not being around for like a lot of this build off filming movies, I hated the whoever wins 3 matches gets to wrestle me thing and all that. And the reason I say all this stuff is because last night it was finally good, in my opinion. It was finally good.
Really?
I thought that, yeah, I thought MJF came out and cut a hilarious promo. I miss seeing him in front of the crowd. Like, I miss seeing him actually in a ring talking trash to a crowd. I think he got a lot of heat for the segment. And then Adam Cole, listen, I think the story is still bad, but at the very least, it was like, okay, Adam Cole finally outsmarted MJF to some degree and cut that promo on the microphone, and then got to him in the ring and attacked him. Once again, it's a very low bar because of how bad the story's been, but this was probably the best thing they've done in this story heading into the match, like this entire time, where it's just like, okay, cool. Like, MJF is a heel and he's back and he's cutting promos that I think are entertaining. Adam Cole is actually standing up for himself. I don't like the fact that these guys are probably going to turn on Adam Cole because it'll hopefully it doesn't prolong the story past where it needs to go. But I feel like if they can just, okay, what we saw last night, get to World's End, have the match, and everyone can just move on. But I just feel like last night, mainly because of MJF and how entertained I was by him in the ring on the mic, that's why I wanted to make it my spotlight. I thought it was funny, and then I liked how Adam Cole outsmarted him. So there you go. It looks like you don't agree. I thought it was a good segment. I mean, dude, comparatively to the rest of this story, this was like the best.
Well, look, that's not my bar for this. My bar was this segment good? And no, I did not think this segment was good. I thought the Adam Cole attack and outsmarting was good. I'm gonna have Taven and Bennett, so you can't get the Dynamite Diamond Ring. That felt a little heavy-handed. They're probably gonna turn on
for sure.
Adam Cole.
Yeah.
MJF with the Photoshop of Adam Cole is
I know that. I missed that part. You did the McLaughlin Arms of an Angel. Dude, that was funny. I thought that was funny, especially because Adam Cole gets so much flack for his physique, so obviously they're playing into that. But dude, I thought that was funny. Like, MJF made himself cry in the ring as he was explaining this stuff just to reveal the Photoshop picture of Adam Cole. I thought it was funny.
All right.
Fuck you, Jeremy. We're allowed to have fun with this sometimes.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
One win for Hanukkah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was not for me.
Okay. Well, we can pivot since you don't have a whole lot to say about this. How do you feel about Ricochet looking like the biggest dweeb in wrestling history last night?
I didn't think this was good either.
I think the Hurt Business is awesome, and they're clearly baby faces. Ricochet is a dweeb.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the Ricochet stuff. That was such a weird segment of like he just got like punked out. Like, I guess he's like trying to be like a cocky, these guys are my friends. Like it's cool. He's doing a Jadakiss laugh. I feel like it's a Jadakiss laugh.
I guess. Is that relevant?
Well, the wife is watching this with me, and she's like, "What is he doing?" Like, I'm pretty sure it's Jadakiss. And so I play her the compilation of like the Jadakiss laugh, and she's like, "Okay," but like she's like, "That's a name I haven't heard in forever." Right? Like, yeah, true, but I guess to me, Jadakiss is always top 5 that are alive. That's just not one LP. But I understand that people in 2024 probably don't know who Jadakiss is. So
no, I remember the name, but I couldn't tell you anything about Jadakiss.
No, well,
definitely not putting that together. As far as, dude,
I am. So yeah, I don't think that stuff is good either.
Yeah, right. Well, I agree with that. I think it's terrible. Once again, I think the Hurt Business is fantastic.
The Hurt Business rules.
Yeah. And I love how they also like. So this was not what we're used to seeing in wrestling, but I liked that this is how this played out last night, where the Hurt Business. Because then, who came out and helped Ricochet?
Garcia,
that's right. Garcia and Briscoe.
Yeah.
But the Hurt Business still wound up standing strong. Like, even though, like,
as they should.
But I agree. I totally agree. But I'm just saying, like, usually in wrestling, when these kind of things happen and like the heels get the upper hand and the babyface come out, they usually like clear the heels out of the ring. in this situation, the Hurt Business just kept beating everyone up. And I was like, good. Like these people, like I keep them strong. Like this is great. This is just another example of AEW just having this weird gray area of heels and baby faces, and most of their heels actually being baby faces, because the Hurt Business are baby faces. They're getting baby face reactions. People like them. People want to see them beat people up. They want to see them hurt people, but they haven't turned baby face. And Ricochet, I think, technically is a baby face, but he's coming across very unlikable. And also, he's not helping his case on social media either. The way he's like dealing with trolls online and stuff, like it's like, I don't know if they're trying to carry that over onto the show somehow, because it's like it all just feels very unlikable to me, where I'm like, I want to see the Hurt Business beat up Ricochet. I have no sympathy for Ricochet. Like, he looks like a dweeb on the show, and now on social media he's like, oh, they my friends, you know, they're just messing with me. So now the gimmick is that he's like ignorant to the fact that they're actually like, they think he's a dweeb. Like that's what's more dweeby than being a dweeb and thinking people think you're cool. Like, Ricochet is lame as hell, man.
Maybe MJF should put a Photoshop up of Ricochet with dorky glasses on, looking like Poindexter out there, and be like, get a load of this dork, LOL. And then people would love it. People would think it's hilarious.
Yeah, I would think it's pretty funny. Dude, this reminded me, I'm making weird references today, but like, this was like on Friday, my grandma gave me that chain and ran away. That was Ricochet last night.
Yeah.
Like, he just walked away with his tail between his legs. Oh, come on, guys. Like, they punked him so hard. That was like, I don't understand what the point of that was, unless like the point is to make Ricochet unlikable. It's because then after the match too, when he cut that little whatever he said afterwards on the mic and the aha thing again, it was like, dude, is this either intentionally? I can't tell if it's intentional or not. Like, I can't tell if Ricochet and AEW think this makes him look. But I don't know if they think him. Anyway, regardless of what the intent was, Ricochet came off as the biggest dweeb in the company. I understand he has a cool move set, okay, but a lot of people in AEW have cool movesets. That's not going to cut it in AEW. You have to be more than just a guy who can do shooting star presses and 630s in AEW, because half the roster can do 630s and shooting star presses. So, like, if you're going to be the guy who's just going out there having banger matches, like, I'm sorry, but Will Ospreay already does what you do better than you do. So, like, you can't be out there getting punked out and coming off this lame and expect people to get behind you, unless you're turning him heel, which might be the intent. But yeah, that's. I was shocked at how lame Ricochet came off last night.
I think it's intentional, and you're supposed to like dislike him. I just don't know if it's dislike for people, or it's kind of like you were saying, like, it just kind of looks like a dork. I don't actively dislike what he's doing. I just don't think it's good, and I think he looks like a dork. Because there's a difference between the two. Like, there's a difference of like, oh, I don't like you, I want to see you get your ass kicked. Otherwise, compared to you're just kind of annoying and you're a dork, but I actually don't care to watch you wrestle at all.
Yeah.
And like, Ricochet's a good wrestler.
Of course. I'm not saying he's not a good wrestler, but I'm just saying, like, it's hard to stand out doing what he's doing just with wrestling in AEW when their roster can do so much of what he does. I think that, like Henry, like Henry's saying in the chat, he says Jensen is giving the reaction that they want, which like, if that's the intent, then then it is working, but it doesn't make me want to watch Ricochet, if that makes sense. Like, it isn't like I have this reaction. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens next on the show for Ricochet. It's more like, can someone else just be on the show instead of Ricochet? Like that, like that's how it feels. I think that Swerve calling him Trevor was hilarious too. Like, Swerve just didn't have any of it. So, and Swerve is still super over. He got a big reaction last night for his segment. So, like, you know, I think that the overall goal is to turn Ricochet heel, but I just thought it was interesting because, once again, this is also flipped, because the Hurt Business were heels trying to court a babyface Ricochet, but now the Hurt Business is really coming off more like baby faces, even though they're still fighting baby faces. But Ricochet is kind of like the lame heel who's trying to get in with the cool kids now, and now they don't want him anymore. Just interesting. King Potato says, "Let them cook." I don't know if you mean us or Ricochet, but
just wait until Ricochet and Max Caster form a tag team. That's all.
Oh man, that would let them cook. Henry says, "Let them cook." Jensen, bookmark it, and let's see how it all looks in a month. Fair enough. Oh, I can give the credit to AEW on that. But yeah,
Ricochet is going to go into Wrestle Dynasty with his aha against Zack Sabre Jr. It's gonna rule. Zack Sabre Jr. is like, "Oi, dickhead, get out of here!"
Oi, you wanker, dude. When was the last time that Jadakiss, when was Jadakiss like at their biggest, like as far as
probably early 2000s,
like around the time like Neo was big?
I don't remember when Neo was.
You remember
big.
Neo?
I'm gonna say early 2000s.
The only reason I'm bringing up Neo is because it was I went to an Atlanta Hawks game last season.
Sounds terrible,
dude. Neo's the man.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking about the Hawks? You felt bad. But I just wanted to say, just Neo. I want to give him a shout out today. I saw Neo at Dave and Buster's, and I was too afraid to walk up to him and introduce myself and try to get a picture because he looked like his whole family. But Neo did the halftime show for the Hawks randomly last season, just this one random game I was at, and I've never seen this happen before during halftime where they announce halftime. So everyone's like walking out of their seats to go to like concessions and stuff. Like everyone's leaving their seats, and Neo starts singing, and he's doing like Miss Independent. Like he's got like a few like pretty big hits. And I also remember him from Stomp the Yard. But I've never seen this happen before where people started coming back to their seats like while because his performance was so good. Everyone came back to their seats, and by the end of it, everyone was singing his songs together. It was like a concert. I've never seen something like this at a halftime show before. So Neo still got it. And the reason I say this is because maybe Jadakiss does too, and I just don't know. So maybe Jadakiss is better than I even realized, and maybe there's more to this Ricochet thing that I just don't understand. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Jadakiss is great, but like if you are gonna argue relevance of things, I like Jadakiss. I still listen to Jadakiss. Jadakiss isn't exactly relevant in 2024, nearing 2025.
That's fair. Let's move on to some other topics before I gotta leave.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
Everybody's leaving TNA.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting. So I don't know if you want to go through the list of everyone leaving, but there is obviously some high-profile people leaving the company.
Trent Seven is reportedly leaving. Kushida is reportedly leaving. Steph the Landers contract reportedly up. AJ Francis contract reportedly up. Speedball Mike Bailey contract reportedly up. Josh Alexander, free agent. We know that one is for sure. Jordan Grace contract reportedly up. I think that's everybody.
So, and this isn't meant to be a conversation specifically about Tessa Blanchard. That's the elephant in the room when it comes to this conversation. What I think this conversation is mostly needing to be about is when you're put in a situation like for TNA, for example, when it comes to Tessa, to even be in a situation where you feel like you need to bring Tessa back to fill the gaps of these people that are leaving. And Tessa, obviously, with all of her controversy and all that, like everything, the baggage that comes along with that, the real underlying issue is like, you shouldn't even be in a position to have to go out of your company to do something like that, because you have a very solid roster of young talent that they need to be doing a better job of cultivating and like growing and pushing their current talent so that they, like, when this stuff happens, you just have people like Ace Austin or Leon Slater, or, I mean, there's a ton of names you can put out there for TNA that, like, okay, we don't have to go out of the company and bring people in, especially with such controversy. You can, you know what I mean? They should just be in a position where, like, so I think that's just really what I wanted to spotlight more so today is, like, TNA is losing a lot of talent and they're making questionable decisions to fill that gap when, you know, they need to just be doing a better job of pushing and doing a better job of the people they currently have. So that's been an issue at TNA forever. They're always kind of doing stuff to like quick fix, like put a Band-Aid on something. Like just like they kick the can a lot, like down the road. Like they'll have like a problem or something, and it's like, well, we'll just go get this person. We'll go get that person. We'll get an ex-WWE person. We'll do that. And it's like, just push who you have. Like we should be in a position right now where like half the current undercard are like main event talents. And it's just now they're ready to fill those gaps. So, how do you feel about that, Jeremy?
I feel there's no quick fix for TNA, and for some reason they feel there's a quick fix. So bringing back someone like Tessa Blanchard isn't going to magically get them 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 viewers. It's just not. Losing the talent that they are losing probably isn't going to be this big dent into the company either. But it's also not a great message. Like the optics don't look great that you're losing this talent and your big idea is to bring back Tessa Blanchard, or your big idea is to bring in JBL for appearances. Like the optics of both of those things, I don't think are great. I wish they would just focus on the talent that they have there and just tell stories with the talent and do matches with the talent that they have. But for some reason, they feel that, bringing this person's in this is gonna take us to the next level. They're running big arenas next year for a couple of shows. They're running UBS. You got to fill those arenas somehow, or at least they hope to fill them to some capacity. I don't think this is the way that it's going to happen. And I don't know if it's worth the backlash that they've already gotten for it. It feels like you're more actively tuning out the people who are currently watching than you're going to get new people to tune in. And that's obviously not the goal. You want to keep the people you have, and you want to make new people, new fans on top of that. It's a weird decision. I can't say it's an unsurprising decision because really not a whole lot of things in wrestling surprise me. The talent that they potentially could lose, I don't know if they're going to lose all of those talents. I don't know what the future is for those talents. Again, I don't think there's a big loss in them. I'm not saying they couldn't do things with Kushida and Trent Seven, especially because they just turned Trent Seven. Now he's like gone. So it's like, oh, okay, cool. You just lost them.
They lost both of them. They lost Speedball and Trent.
Yeah. Like Speedball, you could have probably gotten more juice out of than you actually did. I think AJ Francis is actually a bigger loss than people will want to tell you because he is so good at the promotional side of things, and they need guys like that. They need guys who are out there doing media and, boosting up the company in different on different platforms and in different ways. And AJ Francis would certainly do that for them. They need
best choke name in the business, AJ Francis.
Does have a good choke slam. But like you need more guys like that. So I think he's actually a bigger loss than, again, people are gonna want to say because they just have feelings about AJ Francis. TNA is going to be TNA. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because even controversial hirings aside, even something like Nick Nemeth, like I have nothing against Nick Nemeth. Obviously, I think he's a fantastic performer. He's been around forever. He's got a ton of name value and notoriety coming out of the WWE. He was there for decades, but he didn't move the needle at all for TNA. You know what I mean? So it's like
no one is going to, unless John Cena or Roman Reigns becomes available. No one's going to move the needle for them. I said Punk probably would a little bit, and we'll throw in Cody. But there's not
kind of a draw.
There's the guys that get released by WWE or leave WWE. They're just not. And I'm not saying this as a knock on a guy like Bobby Lashley, but Bobby Lashley, Kazuchika Okada, Shelton Benjamin, Will Ospreay, Mercedes Moné, they come into AEW, and what happened? They They didn't really move the needle for them. Bobby Lashley was in WWE for decades. Shelton Benjamin was in WWE for decades. Bobby Lashley was a former world champion on WWE television. He didn't have to change his name like Ziggler did to Nemeth. He kept pretty much the same presentation. I know he'd been off television since like April, so it's not like he was at the forefront of television. Ricochet, though, had been on television consistently, and he didn't have to change his name. He lost to Braun Breaker in the final night there, but otherwise he was, a champion a couple of years ago. He was the Intercontinental Champion. He was featured pretty regularly on television. None of these guys who left WWE or who were big stars elsewhere came to AEW, who has a much bigger platform than TNA. And all of a sudden, now we added an extra 100,000 viewers. So yeah, Tessa Blanchard, who has been out of the spotlight for a while, just been in Mexico, and the way she left, the things she was accused of, she's not going to come in and all of a sudden add a bunch of viewers to you. Because there just aren't those people there. That's why I don't know. That's why if you're TNA, I don't see the point in always chasing those kind of people. I don't see the point of chasing a Tessa Blanchard of like, this is going to help our numbers. If you can bring somebody in and do good work with them and feature them, that should be the priority over let's chase a person who might boost our numbers.
Yep.
Because they're not going to boost your numbers.
Exactly. Last thing I'll say about this topic, Jordan Grace leaving and Josh Alexander leaving and Speedball leaving. I think all three, actually everyone you mentioned, I think has a bright future, but like Jordan Grace, obviously straight to WWE. She's going to be a huge star there for years. Josh Alexander is going to have a bidding war for him. He's going to wind up wherever he wants to wind up probably. And I'm very happy for that. Speedball, I think, is one of the best, one of the best bell-to-bell wrestlers in the entire world, everywhere he wrestles, and has been for years now. AJ Francis, like I said, I'm an AJ fan. I like AJ, and I love his choke slam. I think he's underrated overall. So like these are all people that have bright futures, and these are big losses. Trent Seven's very talented, like has been around for a long time as well. So like this isn't good for TNA that they're losing this much talent, and they're trying to supplement it with people that they shouldn't probably be supplementing it with. So we're on the same page here. We can move. I got about 10 minutes before I got to clock in for the shoot job.
The other spotlight is Final Battle. This kind of ties into Indies as well, so we'll kind of double up here. But Final Battle, Athena and Billie Starkz. It's finally Big Billie's time, right?
100%. I mean, there's honestly not a whole lot we can say about this outside of like Athena has had a fantastic run with the title. She's been the champion for 2 years now. So, and rightfully so. Last year I thought that Billie Starkz should have won, but similar to Cody Rhodes finishing the story a year after I wanted it to happen, the way it wound up ultimately playing out worked even better. And we've seen a lot happen over the last year where like Athena has continued to defend her championship. Billie became the first women's TV champion for Ring of Honor, lost that title and then kind of like fell out of favor with Athena. Athena favors Lexi a lot more now than Billie, and they're finally at odds to where it makes sense storyline wise, it makes sense timing wise. Billie Starkz is really the only option, right? That makes any sense. I mean, at this point, especially, who else can Athena beat? And also, Billie's the right person. She's been tied to Athena. She was her minion. This is years and years in the making. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm friends with her father, Robert Bellamy Mouse. He's a great dude. Best ringside photographer in the game, in my opinion. And I've been watching Billie wrestle since she was literally like 13 or 14 years old. Like, as weird as that sounds, it's the truth. I mean, because I once again, friends with her dad. I found out she was training. He kind of kept me tapped in really early on and kind of how she was doing. And then I watched her whole career on the indies from her first televised streaming matches and stuff all the way through where she's at right now. I'm a humongous Billie Starkz fan. I think the world of her and that family. I think they're great people, and they love wrestling, and Billie's a fantastic wrestler. Athena deserves all the credit in the world for this title run. She's she's absolutely the best thing about like the current day Ring of Honor since Tony purchased the company. She's been the main best, I mean, whatever word you want to use. She is the star of that show and has been the person who has carried that company on her back this whole time. And she deserves all of her flowers for that too, especially because I wanted to see her on AEW TV this whole time too, because she's so talented, but she's one of like the true, Ring of Honor performers that they have, and has really, once again, just really carried that brand. And now it's time for someone to get the payoff of beating her, and it just, the stars are aligning. It makes all the sense in the world that Billie Starkz is that person to beat Athena. So not only do I think that Billie Starkz is going to win, I do think it'd be the right move for them to be the actual main event of the show. This should be the last match of the show. I know they're doing Jericho and Cardona for the ROH World title as well. A lot of star power as far as the names there. But for what this means to the company and the story that's been brewing for years, I think Athena and Billie Starkz should be the last match, the actual main event, and the show should close with Billie Starkz winning the ROH Women's World Championship.
And I do think that is main eventing. Athena said as much. Fightful Select reported as much. So that should close the show.
Yes, I believe she told Denise that. Yeah. I think I saw something about that. So shout out to Denise as well, of course, our friend Denise Saucedo.
Co-main event is Matt Cardona and Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho showed up in GCW and attacked Matt Cardona, which Tony Khan reviewed was Matt Cardona's idea. He's the one who called and said, hey, can Jericho do this? And that's how it came together. I know you have thoughts on this, Jensen.
Absolutely. So y'all know me, and I know it's not a popular thing to like Chris Jericho nowadays, but if Cody Rhodes didn't exist, my favorite wrestler of all time would be Chris Jericho. I've watched him since the mid-90s. I get the criticisms and stuff, but that's not what this is about. What it kind of is a little bit about this is about. So I think this was smart for a few reasons. One, Jericho showing up on GCW, first time he's ever been a part of the company. I'm a humongous mark for GCW. I thought it was cool to see him in a GCW ring, kind of like a mark out, never thought you'd see it type of moment. This also makes sense because he attacked Matt Cardona. They're having the match at Hammerstein. Jericho did the initial attack wearing like a New York Giants disguise, with like a New York baseball disguise. He was like New Yorked out. He's calling himself the King of New York and stuff. They ran the video thing last night on Dynamite. But not only did he accomplish, furthering his story with Cardona with this, he also planted more seeds because he also attacked Effie. And everybody knows that when you come into GCW and you're a big name from anywhere else, who do you go after? You go after Effie. That happens all the time. It happens with so many of these people that come from a larger company, come into GCW, they immediately target Effie, which leads me to believe that Jericho, I don't think this was a one-time appearance. I wouldn't be surprised if Jericho wrestled GCW Hammerstein. I know it might be a pipe dream, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was on that show. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a match with Effie sometime in the near future in GCW. I don't think it'll happen in Hammerstein because I expect Effie to beat Allie Katch and then beat Mance Warner for the GCW Championship at Hammerstein this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if Jericho had more involvement with GCW. Also very interesting because Jericho was wearing an AEW t-shirt after he revealed himself, and all that talk recently about Ricky Starkz getting pulled from GCW, Willie Mack getting pulled from GCW. This shows that there is some sort of there's some sort of bridge being mended there for them to have him in an AEW t-shirt in a GCW ring. And also the last point I'll make is that Chris Jericho's big thing right now is people have turned on him because he the whole learning tree and all that stuff happened after it was no longer cool to be Jericho. Throughout his career, he's been very good about pivoting out of things before they get stale. This got stale, and now he's leaning into it. What better way of trying to get some of these fans back on your side than going to the Indies and almost like reproving yourself in a GCW and winning back that portion of the fan base? So yeah, I was obviously a huge fan of seeing this happen. Jeremy, I can see the look on your face. What do you have to say about this?
I don't think this is GCW and AEW working together at all. Maybe it leads to that. It'd be nice. It'd be nice if Ricky Starkz could get some bookings back. This to me just felt like Cardona knew Jericho was in town. Jericho knew he was in town. Hey, can this happen? Yes, that we can make this happen. Jericho is going to do what Jericho is going to do. I don't think he has a bigger picture in mind of, AEW is going to work with GCW. Because what's going to happen if that's the case? Jericho's going to come in and he's going to beat Effie. You think Jericho is losing to Effie.
No, I'm not thinking that at all. Everyone winds up beating Effie in these situations, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, it happened with Jarrett, it happened with all these guys.
Jericho does stuff to, win favor from the crowd. Joel's in our chat mentioning that when Jericho showed up to PWG, like Jericho comes in to like win favor with the crowd and stuff. He'll work these indie shows, but he doesn't have a long-term investment for this or to really try to help these indie companies past, hey, we're going to do a Jericho pop here. And that's completely his right, by the way. I'm not saying that Jericho needs to go to GCW and try to boost GCW business or anything. Oh, it's Chris Jericho doing things that he thinks is good for the Chris Jericho brand. And so he thinks going to GCW here is good for the Chris Jericho brand. To do a one-off with Matt Cardona where he attacks him and looks strong. But this is what Chris Jericho does in every single appearance on the indies. He attacks somebody and looks strong. And then maybe it leads to a match. And then typically he's going to win that match as well. And then it's never heard from again. Jericho never returns to the company. There's no big follow-up or anything like that. It's just done. This is the Chris Jericho playbook. I don't think it means anything for AEW and GCW. I think it means Chris Jericho is doing what Chris Jericho does.
I mean, I don't really disagree with you either.
Hales.
This is definitely for Jericho. I mean, this is mostly to benefit Jericho, of course. But like the fact he was wearing an AEW shirt in the GCW ring right after all this talk about their falling out with one another. I mean, like that they're playing into all of this, obviously. So I'm just interested to see where it goes. But you're probably right. It probably won't lead to much. But I do want to see Effie versus Jericho, even if Jericho winds up winning. Anyway, next
Effie versus Jericho.
Sorry, I got to run in a second. Next topic.
Dylan Hales is aligned with Tim Bosby. This is Stephen Jensen booked this.
Yeah. So basically, I interviewed Tim Bosby like what was it 2 weeks ago for the show, and we put an article up on the website. Thank you, Jeremy, for getting that up there.
Thank you for doing the legwork.
No problem. But so this was pretty wild because I literally asked Tim during our interview about what Dylan Hales kind of means to him, and it was mainly because Dylan is very heavily he's a huge decision maker behind the scenes when it comes to a lot of these indie shows and stuff that airs on IWTV and stuff, especially in the Southeast. And Dylan presented Bosby with the Action World Championship when he won it in a TWE ring in the TW Arena a couple weeks back from Warhorse. And he didn't want to say at the time what the conversation was about in the ring. But I just thought I'm not saying that like my interview is the reason that story happened. I just think that it's really cool timing and everything, how everything lined up where like we got to interview him for this show. We got to put out some articles about it. Dylan even responded to those articles in like a quote tweet. A lot of people did. We actually got a lot of that from a lot of different wrestlers talking about how important Dylan Hales is to them. And then the next time we see Tim Bosby, so for people don't know, he had never actually wrestled for Action Wrestling. He won their championship before ever actually wrestling on their shows because he won it in a TWE match. So his debut in Action Wrestling, he comes out in the first match of the show, destroys the people in the ring all by himself. And then in the main event, he winds up beating Bobby Flacco, who was the former champion before Jake Parnell. And Dylan winds up turning heel and aligning with Bosby and cuts these great promos on that show and on social media. Basically, Dylan's calling himself the star maker and Bosby is the star. And if you want to know more about Tim Bosby, check out that interview right here on Fightful Overbooked from a couple weeks ago here on the Spotlight. But I just thought that was really cool to see. Like I literally just talked to him about Dylan. We put some articles up. We put an article up about him and Dylan. And then it wound up literally playing out on TV that they were aligned on as an act on the indies now, which is really cool to see. So shout out to both Dylan Hales and Tim Bosby, Action Wrestling World Champion.
You have the pen now, Jensen.
I have to go. I have to go clock in for work now. Y'all enjoy this interview with David Penzer. Jeremy, you can set this up more when I leave. I hope everybody has a happy holidays. Me and Jeremy will be off from this show next week. I'll be out of town again. Wish me luck. I'll be back at the casino, and wish the Vikings luck. They are still they are 12-2, and yeah, you can follow me on X at Fight Talk _. You can listen to the Fightful Select Weekender podcast on FightfulSelect.com. Me talking the indies. Good seeing you, Jeremy. Good seeing chat. Happy weekend and happy holidays.
Appreciate you as always, Jensen. Merry Christmas to you. I'm sure we'll talk before then. Folks, we do have an interview with David Penzer, legendary WCW ring announcer, also ring announcer for TNA Wrestling for a time. We talked to him about he's got a second book out, Sitting Ringside Volume 2. You can get that now at davidpenzerbook.com or guyevansbooks.com or amazon.com. Just search for David Penzer Books. David Penzer Books, Sitting Ringside Volume 1, Sitting Ringside Volume 2. We talk about the book, The Failed XWF, who people may or may not remember. It was a promotion that tried to get off the ground after WCW closed and did some TV tapings, but didn't fully work out for various reasons. David Penzer goes into full detail in his book, but he gave us a lot of insight on during this interview. And we talked to David about cruise line business. We talked to him about airbrush tattoos. And I did ask him if he'd be interested in a return to TNA since Jade Chung is now leaving at the start of next year. So here we go, everybody. Let's get into it. In the creator spotlight, returning for his second interview with us, David Penzer.
Welcome to the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight on Fightful. I am Stephen Jensen, joined as always by Jeremy Lambert. And our guest today is a returning guest. He is a voice of my childhood and Jeremy's childhood. I'm sure you all know him from WCW and TNA Wrestling, may even know him from XWF. And he has a book that just released, Sitting Ringside Volume 2. He is the legendary ring announcer, Dave Penzer. Dave, thanks for joining us again. And how have you been doing?
I've been doing great. Thanks for having me, man. But I feel old, the voice of your childhood. Oh my God.
Yeah, man. I mean, me and Jeremy are both in our mid to late 30s. We're kind of becoming the old heads of kind of our space, and like kind of the wrestling podcasting scene also. And yeah, we grew up on you, man. I was a kid in the 90s, and so was Jeremy. And I was a big WCW fan, especially. So and I love TNA, early TNA. Still follow the product. So no, I'm not just blowing smoke. You legitimately are somebody we both grew up on.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to have you on today because your book just came out, Sitting Ringside Volume 2. Obviously there was good feedback and reception for the first book. For you all to be doing this again, of course, you are the co-author along with Guy Evans, and I saw it was forwarded as well by Mike Tenay. Can you tell us kind of about the decision making of doing this book, kind of based on what you got, from coming out with the first book?
Yeah, we were just going to do one book. That was the original plan. It was going to be a scrapbook. It wasn't even going to be like about, my career. But the more that I started talking to Guy Evans, he came to me and said, all right, we're doing 2 books and it's going to be more, along with all the cool inside, never before seen, inside baseball formats and stuff, business plans. We're going to, tell more of your story than we were planning on it. And I said, all right, you're the boss. So here we are.
Guy sent us a excerpt of the book, and part of what I was reading had to do with the XWF. And I kind of want to start off today's interview talking about that, because that's a promotion that today's wrestling fans might not know really much about. But for someone like me and Jeremy, once again, with the age we were at, our fandom, and like the internet age and everything kind of all coming all together at the same time. Like, I remember the XWF. I remember this happening, and I remember there being like DVDs and stuff, like maybe a DVD set for the company, and it was almost like this like lore or like this thing that was like it's hard to paint a picture for this, because this is like ECW is closed, WCW is closed, WWE is kind of the only big game in town, and XWF had a lot of the talent that I was familiar with from, WCW and stuff like that. So can you tell us a little bit about just like XWF and like the kind of just the idea and concept, even like becoming a thing back then?
Well, yeah, Turner went out of WCW went out of business, and there was only one player in the game, and that was WWF at the time, Vince McMahon and company. And so a lot of people were trying to get a lot of different things going. Obviously, there was a ton of people that needed work, and there were, there was only one wrestling company, which never really before happened in the history of the sport. Back in the territory days, everybody had their own territory, but there was, more than one place to work. And there was no, you got to keep in mind that back then there was no indie promotions that booked, 1,000-seat ballrooms in Chicago and flew in 10, 12 guys. If you were, I'd say just for where I lived at the time in the Atlanta area, if you want to book an indie show, number 2, and maybe a Buff Bagwell or a Disco Inferno, and that's it. And then just fill it out with undercard guys. So it's a whole different kind of thought process as the world we live in now. And for whatever reason, of all people, Brian Knobbs and Greg Valentine and Jimmy Hart got there first, as far as at least having somebody put up the money to be able to, tape some pilots and see where we went.
Well, I know a big part of that too was like the early involvement of Hulk Hogan. And I also believe Randy Savage was like at one point linked to that. Like it was like, massive names and stars. Can you kind of speak to, I know this, a lot of stuff's going to be in your book, of course, but like, can you speak to like kind of what it was like during the early days of almost like negotiating the idea of the company? Because Hulk Hogan, it sounds like back then kind of had like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And obviously that's like a really big key to this whole thing being a thing would be Hulk Hogan's involvement. So what was it kind of like the early days of like trying to put this whole thing together and specifically having Hulk Hogan potentially being involved?
Yeah, a lot of guys flirted with the promotion. The ones who went all in, I'll tell you from the very get-go, were Roddy Piper and Tony Schiavone and Jerry Lawler, which is a whole different side story. Although they did do the tapings, Lawler had gotten a little inside baseball. Lawler had gotten offered his job back in WWF the day before the tapings were scheduled. He took the job, but he said he had to do the tapings because he was contractually obligated, which he was. And so that was the beginning of Vince's saying, all right, how many people could I purge from this promotion before they could get it on TV and screw their chances of getting a deal? And it's not all Vince's fault, by the way, or WWE's fault, but that's just a little bit. Guys like Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan were a little bit more hesitant. Even like Hall and Nash came by a couple of times to the office. They were a little bit more hesitant to risk their name and their legacy on this promotion that nobody really knew if it had a chance. And so I know before I was brought in, Randy Savage flirted around with it. He stepped away right before I was brought in, and they decided to that they were going to do this and they were going to hire full-time staff and all that. And Hulk flirted with back and forth. It was funny. I used to in the boardroom there was a board, a whiteboard, and I was the one who would write down like people's ideas or what matches or storylines. And there was always one side if Hulk decides to do it, and the other side if Hulk doesn't decide to do it. And like one day it was, Knobbs would come in and said, "Hey man, I hung out with Hulk last night. I think I got him, convinced him to do it." And then, a couple days later, it'd be like, it doesn't look good. He was a big fan of not only the promotion and the idea, but, the people behind it. Jimmy Hart to this day still, acts sort of as his road manager. Knobbs and him, I think they're back on good terms, but they were very good friends at the time. Nobody really likes Greg Valentine, but, you put up with him. That's a joke, by the way, kind of. And I got off track. Sorry about that. So what he ended up doing at the end of the day was he kind of did in between. He said he would do a match, but that we couldn't post it. We couldn't include it in the TV tapings. We were shopping to the television networks, and he said he would do a promo that we could use in the shows we were shopping to the TV network. So he didn't go all in, he didn't go all out, but he it wasn't until we were at Universal Studios that he decided he would do a match against Kurt Hennig. That would be sort of like a dark match that we could film, but we couldn't use unless we got to a point down the road where we got on TV and negotiated the ability to use that match. So it's sort of an interesting time in the business. And, there were some people who were sitting home making, millions of dollars of Turner's money. There were some people who were not making any money. And, there were some people who had saved their money, like a Hogan or a Savage, and, or a Sting or someone like that. So there was a lot of people that really needed the work, and there were some people that really didn't want to risk their reputations, and Hulk kind of flirted with it, back and forth the whole way through.
What was the overall kind of vibe in the locker room and at the tapings specifically? Because for those that don't know, I know Jensen mentioned a lot of the names that were part of it, and you've mentioned a lot of the names, a lot of the former kind of top guys in WCW, a lot of ECW people, but also guys who have come on to be big names. I'm specifically going to mention AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels were part of these tapings as well. So it was a really good mix of, again, people who had been on television at WCW, had a whole lot of experience, people who may have been on television at some point with ECW, but then guys who maybe didn't have as much experience. So what was just kind of the vibe overall in that locker room?
It was great. Everybody was just happy to be working for the most part. It was very much family atmosphere because there wasn't anything else unless you wanted to go to New York, and he wasn't exactly hiring, a million people. He had just bought the contracts of a whole bunch of wrestlers that he was trying to figure out what to do with. So it was everybody worked together and let's make this thing happen kind of attitude, and everybody, everybody pick somebody up, and work hard to get this thing going. It was fun. It was sort of like TNA is now, or it was great. I booked the cruiserweights. I was a big fan at the time of the cruiserweights. I helped AJ Styles get his deal in WCW, where him and I forgot the name, but their name of their tag team was what was it, Airwave, or it was Air Paris and AJ Styles, and they were supposed to win the cruiserweight tag team titles before the company got sold. But I don't want to say I'm the only one who saw something in AJ Styles. I mean, Bill Behrens was his biggest supporter, and Jeff Jarrett thought the world of him, and guys like Daniels, and I just really love that style. The first Nitro about how small he was, kind of under their breath. And once he went out there and wrestled, nobody ever again said anything about his size. Van and Knobs and them kind of put me in charge of booking the cruiserweights. I had to get approval for what we were doing, but it was pretty much my department.
That's awesome. I remember there was like a cruiserweight title battle royal for XWF. So you helped book that. It sounds like, put that together. But yeah, I believe Kid Cash won that match, and there was like a lot of names that I either knew or would come to know as a big name, all involved in that match.
Yeah, Kid Cash was a Jimmy Hart guy. Not that I didn't think the world of his ability, and he at the time he looked like Kid Rock, who was hotter than hot. So he was a Jimmy Hart guy. But yeah, it's funny, you look back, there's everybody was on a nightly gimmick, other than people obviously that worked full time in the office, like myself and Janie Engel and people like that. But there was only 3 people that were on what you would kind of call looking back, developmental contracts, which meant that we had right of first refusal, and we were paying them a small amount per week, guarantee to be our talent. And that was Kid Cash was one. Josh Matthews was another, who was just off of the Tough Enough series. And we had big plans for him if we were ever going to do anything, which obviously we didn't in hindsight. And then Emery Hale, who Jimmy Hart managed as Hale, and was seen as a potential rival for Hogan if we ever got anything down the road.
Yes, I remember that.
So there's a little inside baseball for you.
Yeah, so I didn't mean to cut you off there with the delay, but I was going to say that Hale, I remember it was humongous, and I remember thinking like this would be interesting to see this guy, get a big push and maybe take on someone like Hulk Hogan. That would have been. He was a very, very large man, Hale. I was curious as far as like other pushes that you were planning to do during the company. It seemed like Vampiro was going to be a big priority, and also Kurt Hennig. I know Hennig wound up going back to the WWE. He came back at the Royal Rumble in 2002 in Atlanta. And Vampiro. So am I accurate in saying that those were guys that had the company stayed around that you were going to probably be building around, were guys like Vampiro and Kurt Hennig?
Yeah, and I go into detail. We go into detail in the book about the storylines and where things were going with all the particular players. You could go to davidpenzerbook.com, all one word, or Amazon.com and check it out. Yeah, you're right. Vampiro was going to get a shot at being the babyface. You could call it number one babyface. Really, the number one babyface was Piper, even though he didn't wrestle. And Kurt and Bagwell and a young guy named a young German bodybuilder were going to get a chance to be the top heel group. Bagwell started as a babyface and was teased turning heel at the end, and that's the direction we were going. But the real shows were based around the plot twist between Roddy as the commissioner and Rena Mero, a.k.a. Sable, as the CEO. And most of the storyline plots went through them. I know you've probably seen some of it. There's some of it on YouTube that you can look up. But there was a push and pull where one week it looked like Sable was going to be the heel and Piper was going to be the baby face. And then one week it looked like maybe Piper was going to, turn on Sable, but it never happened. And I don't know how far we could have taken it, but there was a long way to go. Those we did 10 hours. 5 hours of them were just like kind of squash matches. And the other 5 hours were episodic tapings. I think 3 of those are available. And the other 2 disappeared along with the 5 hours of one-off matches. And there was so much farther to go with that. They played off each other perfectly. And, you wouldn't think it, Sable and Roddy Piper, you wouldn't think it when you started it. But Roddy made magic between those 2. And you know what? Sable was able to keep up her end of the bargain. So that was really what the plot twists were about, because that's what the talent was, the top talent. And then, everything else was going to be, build these guys up, build these storylines up. And then maybe Roddy and Sable can move more towards the background once we get the new guys built up and once we got the storylines built up.
Was there anything you mentioned some of the stuff when it comes to building certain talents, but did you have anything sort of concrete out there past the initial tapings, like knowing that the future was a little bit up in the air, especially after Vince signed a couple of people away?
Well, I don't want to give away anything that we talk about in depth in the book. I've already given away a ton, but again, you get the entire XWF business plan. Nobody other than maybe 10 people have ever seen that. I didn't even know I had it, and I don't even know how I got it, because it was done before I even came into the promotion. But somehow I ended up with it, and it goes into details of how much Piper got paid at Sable and how much I got paid to work full time, and there's about the production costs and it's pretty cool detail of of something that's never been seen before, and so to answer your question, I assumed they're paying all this money. At least we got a plan B. Oh, look who's there. The big boss jumped in.
Sean Ross Sapp just sneaking in right here. Can you please comment on you being an absolute stooge and offering to give me social security numbers of all the wrestlers just if I bought you a drink? You'll notice he didn't have a comment on that.
Sean doesn't realize he's on a major delay either.
I might have said that, but he's making my delay look good. Thank you for making me look good, Sean. I might have said that in a bar in North Carolina, but I would have never given away anybody's info. But I would have taken a drink. This whole business is a work. Just because you promise something to somebody in exchange for something doesn't mean you're going to give it to them.
True.
Hey, however you can get a drink.
So getting back to your question, I don't remember, by the way, that I said that to him, but I'm not denying it either. What I will tell you is nobody's information was ever going to get passed around. It was all in good fun. But getting back to your question, you had to think there was at least a plan B, something in their back pocket. And, I don't know 100% for sure if there ever was. That fell apart. But when push came to shove and we couldn't really find anybody that wanted to jump on for a variety of reasons, A, we lost a lot of the talent that was on there. And B, by canceling WCW when it still had actually pretty decent ratings, versus other cable news and cable sports content and entertainment content, all the other network executives thought there must be something wrong with wrestling, TV wrestling, because why would Turner just throw away, these really good ratings? Now, maybe they're not as good as they were, but they're still in the top 10, 15 every week of cable TV ratings. And that's not easy to do. So I think that there was a stench in the air, which is one of the reasons I think that TNA had to go the pay-per-view route. I know that for a while because nobody could figure out why WCW would have gotten rid of something that was still doing okay. And we now know the answer is they didn't want it anymore, and Turner lost power, and that is what it is. But yeah. At the end of the story is, at the end of the day, whatever they had in their back pocket or wherever they thought they might be able to get on, obviously they didn't get on, or else we wouldn't be talking about this as the lost promotion.
All right, as y'all can see, a little bit different of a layout. I believe, Jeremy, we got this all set up now. We should be able to hear Dave a bit clearer. Sorry for the switch up here. Dave, as we were talking, XWF. When you guys had that company, put together and you started that up and you were looking to potentially, get distribution for that show, like, were there any front runners or anything like promising as far as like, TV deals or anything like that before you guys wound up going to DVD?
The plan was never to go to DVD. The DVD just, that's actually a good question. We never brought that up in the book, so I'm not stooging anything off. But Jimmy and or Knobs found somebody who had, 3 of the episodes and decided to put out, the DVDs. I think they did something with Mike Graham on as far as an infomercial. But that was never the plan. The plan was not DVDs. That was just sort of how do we take the, 2 or 3 years later, how do we take this and monetize it since it's done. As far as TV, it was kept very close to the vest. There was the inner circle of Knobs and Jimmy, and the guy from original guy from Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington, who's started the infomercial business for the most part, or took it to the next level for sure. A couple international players. I talk about it in the in the book, but it's a menagerie of rich people acquired their wealth through strange and ways. There was a guy who had phone booths. He was really the head investor, and he had was in the phone booth business based out of Dallas. Um, Hope he saved his money, actually. But looking back, but yeah, there was a guy who Sam Kinison looking and sounding guy who made his money through satellite porn in India. You can't make this stuff up, but he was a millionaire, so multimillionaire. So hey, however you could get it, man.
Sure.
There was an ex-executive from NFL Properties. He was an attorney, and he was really like the guy who his name was John Flood. He was really like the guy who was legit. I don't want to say the other guys weren't legitimate, but it's kind of hard to go into FX or Fox or any of the USA Network and say, hey, this is Denny. He sold porns on satellite in India, and this is Walter Frank. He sold pay phones for 40 years. It's a lot easier to say, hey, I'm the president of the company, which John Flood was, and I'm the former president of NFL Properties. I'm an attorney for the last 40 years. And so he was really the glue that kept it all together. And yeah, I mean, I never heard of anything concrete. I do know there was some syndicated offers internationally, but they wanted us to retape the pilots because they didn't have the people in them anymore. And it didn't make sense. They weren't offering enough money for us to go in and retape the pilots and start from scratch. That I do know for a fact, but other than that, I don't know if there ever was anything. So, I always in my mind kept saying, well, and I think I mentioned this earlier, these guys aren't going to go in without at least something in their back pocket. And, I guess I was wrong, but yeah, I mean, it gave me a source of income for a year and a half and extended my time in the business. And it was really fun. I mean, I got to be a part of everything from storylines to talent booking to travel to production to even going to Arkansas when we had to cut the tapes down to 41 minutes, I think, so people could put commercials in there. And and being take a slice out here, telling the guy that's operating the editor to take a slice out here, and we nickeled and dimed it down to 41 minutes. But so it really, I felt like I helped create something in a lot of different ways, and it was very satisfying for somebody who always wanted to strove to do more in the wrestling business than just be the ring announcer, although I love that too. And it was the first of many opportunities. Well, really, WCW Saturday Night was the first of many opportunities that Jimmy gave me, but it was the first of many opportunities, some Memphis stuff and some pay-per-views, Legends pay-per-views and stuff that Jimmy allowed me to really be a leader of the team. And that's probably the most satisfying things I ever did in the business.
That's super cool. WCW Saturday Night was the show that hooked me on pro wrestling as a kid. Like that was the first show I remember watching on a regular basis. I grew up in Atlanta, so TBS and just I have really really fond memories of WCW Saturday Night.
Well, we took it over when there was Nitro and Thunder, and the head honchos had their hands filled just booking those 5 hours of television. And Jimmy said, hey, I might want to come in with a little group of my own and do our own storylines. The major talent, if they don't want to come, don't have to come. We'll use the guys like, the Benoits and the Jerichos and the Eddie Guerreros, and and we'll use some of the older legends that you guys are shying away with, from Jim Duggan and people like that. And we'll feature the cruiserweight So it was me, and I talked about this in depth in my first book, but it was Jimmy, myself, Arn Anderson, and Tony Schiavone. We booked it, and we just did a very simple formula. It was good matches, very simple storylines, because you never know when Jimmy was always worried, if they don't like a storyline, we do that because it interferes with something they're doing on the main shows. It's gonna, it's gonna kill us. So it was all very simple stuff that didn't involve any of the top guys or anybody that would have a problem. And just build week to week episodic television like Jimmy had done for so many years in Memphis, Tennessee. And it was some of the best times of my life. I even hired a backup ring announcer to do those shows, and so I could be backstage, a gorilla, the go position, and help with production and stuff. So yeah, it was fun. The problem was the ratings started inching up. I'll never forget. Jimmy came to me and said, "Baby, we got a problem." And I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Well, Thunder got a 2.7 this week." And I said, "Okay, what's the problem?" "Well, we got a 2.5. And so, then the next week we did a 2.55. And then the next week we did a 2.6. And in a couple weeks, our tapings went away to become a package show hosted by Scott Hudson, where they would take the Nitro and the Thunder tapes and interviews and sit downs, and put together a package show as opposed to telling storylines. And that was the end of that. So I guess in a way, I helped kill WCW Saturday Night. I apologize.
It was too successful. You did too good of a job, is what it sounds like.
Well, that's the point. And look,
right.
Not having to deal with those massive egos was a huge. I'm not saying that we could have stepped in with everything that was going on at the time and done anything. We probably would have been in the same, probably worse off than the people that were creative at the time. But we just did simple stuff with talented guys and simple stories, and people seem to dig it. So I don't want to go in and say, "Oh, we're a bunch of booking geniuses," because again, we just did very simple things and tried to get you to watch from one week to the next without, having to, blow up the show every week with crazy storylines and cliffhangers and all that. So
what was it like? You've been around Jimmy Hart a long time, and Jimmy Hart, one, doesn't age, and two,
Yep.
he's everywhere. He was just on WWE Saturday Night's Main Event this past weekend. Like he's at every single convention you go to. Like he is everywhere. What's it like just being around Jimmy Hart for as long as you have been around Jimmy Hart on a day, especially with the XWF, like on a day-to-day basis? Because it seems like he doesn't slow down.
No, he's exhausting. It's exhausting. No, he has so much energy and so much desire. Somebody joked around on Twitter when he was on Saturday Night's Main Event that not only was he in that shot sitting ringside, but he probably put up the ring and helped put up the merch stuff and I said, "Don't forget wrestling a DJ before the show went live." Just wanted to help, wanted to do whatever he can to make the show better, whether it was something that other people thought was beneath him or not. He didn't care. That's what he wanted to do. Always, it's still what he wants to do. And somebody was joking about how Charles Robinson hasn't aged either. And I made a comment on Twitter at David Penzer, by the way, if you want to follow me. I mentioned on Twitter that some of the best aging talent has been Jerry Lawler, Jimmy Hart, and Charles Robinson. And the common denominator is none of them have ever done a drug or had a sip of alcohol.
That's good life lessons there.
I'm not saying that's a big sample size, but maybe it might be onto something there.
I had a quick follow-up about something you had mentioned with, I know you said that you worked with Kevin from the original Shark Tank, and you worked with the guy who looked like Sam Kinison and that kind of stuff. What was your actual overall impression of just working with infomercial people in general? Obviously, Don West was a big infomercial guy. He was one of my favorite wrestling personalities, and I watched him as an infomercial guy before I watched him in wrestling. I got a lot of love for Don West. Rest in peace to him. Obviously, what were your overall impression of just working with just infomercial people in general?
Well, it's funny because later on, and we talk about this in the book. Later on, I went on to be a partner, of a very successful airbrush tattoo company that I sort of stumbled into, and we were extremely successful. And we developed a product called U Tattoo, where you could do airbrush tattoo to yourself. It was a little packet, and we went to the toy fair in New York City one year, and we were the talk of the toy fair. We had a ton of orders. The problem was at the toy fair, we were applying them, and so people could see the process, but they're sitting on a shelf in Spencer's Gifts. Nobody knows what it is. And it's too expensive to get like an end thing where you could actually show like video. So I actually worked with Kevin and his people again in developing infomercials for it. The problem was at the time, you could either get 2 minutes or 30 minutes. And 2 minutes was not long enough for me to for us to show it. And 30 minutes was way too long, way too expensive. We did go on HSN several times and were very successful, sold out every time on Home Shopping Network. So we came close. When it's funny, you know, how the world works. When the Shark Tank started, I reached out to Kevin via some of his people and said, hey, can we get on Shark Tank? You know, these are people that had done the infomercial for us, produced it. So they were very aware and booked us on HSN. So, and they got back to me and they said, well, you don't have any sales, because we never really got sales. And then we stopped selling because it was, unfortunately, it was a failure. I have no doubt in my mind that if we could have gotten on Shark Tank, I'd be a multimillionaire right now. There's not a doubt in my mind. But because we had stopped selling, they wouldn't, you know, they wanted to know what your sales were, not just what the concept was. So we didn't get on that, but you know, I can't complain. I've had a great life and lived my dreams. So, you know, I guess the multi-million dollars just was meant to be. But my point is, it's a very interesting industry, and there's a lot of money to be made. If you notice, the Lori girl who sits at the end of Shark Tank is she's a big time infomercial person, and she buys these, you know, percentage of these companies and puts it on infomercial, and you know, and makes hundreds and millions of dollars, if not more. You know, set it and forget it. And the air fryers now are a big deal, and there's always something to put on there, even if it's a 60-second one, you know, with like the hose that never tangles. You know, and there's a lot of money to be made. Interesting point. Whatever they're charging for it, divide by 5, and that's how much it costs to bake it.
I believe that.
So if they're charging $20, it costs them $4 to make.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it. That is kind of jarring sometimes, even when I watch Shark Tank. You're referring to Lori Grenier, she who does all the HSN stuff or infomercial
Yeah, that's
stuff.
what I was talking about.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because they'll ask them just like straight up sometimes during Shark Tank pitches, what do you make it for and what do you sell it for? And sometimes they're like, make it for 10 cents, sell it for $20, and you're just like, what? Like how does that work? But like they have good products that people want, so people are willing to pay for them. Did you have oh, sorry, go ahead.
If that's something people are interested in, the little inside baseball on the infomercial and home shopping world, we do do a whole chapter on my business and a couple chapters on my business and that in detail. So something that you might find that's not wrestling related, but might find interesting.
One quick follow-up about the tattoo airbrush. Did you have any like designs that, you know, people really like took to more than others or anything? For whatever reason, I'm just envisioning like the Goldberg tribal tattoo, because I'm just like connecting you to WCW, and like I feel like every little kid back in the 90s wanted that. Did you have any like you know, kind of best options like when you guys had that together that people really kind of took to?
We did. There was women like this butterfly design that we had, and we had like, you know, tons of designs. And without getting into the whole business, you could read about that in the book, and it's pretty interesting how it came about, because it kind of came about out of nowhere. And but I was able to partner up with a guy in Melbourne and Brisbane, Australia, who created a program where he could make a stencil for an airbrush tattoo of anything, any character. So for example, to bring this back around to wrestling, for 3 or 4 years during the Road to WrestleMania tour, we did WWF, WWE tattoos. So the Undertaker character at the time, whatever the wall, the video wall looked like, or the merchandise looked like, we would create those characters, those images, and people could get them. Now they gave them away for free as part of the Road to WrestleMania tour, so they paid us flat amount for our services and for reorders and stuff like that. But it could have gone a lot of ways with we did great. One of the talking about Jimmy Hart, Jimmy brought us. He knew the guy from Graceland, and me and Jimmy and my partner Marty Thompson, also from Australia, drove to Memphis, and we set it up in Graceland for a test run. And I mean, they couldn't get enough of the Elvis Presley tattoos. You had the TCB with the lightning bolt, and you had Elvis's face, and just Graceland, the gates of Graceland, and they ended up doing a licensing deal with us for about 5 years. So yeah, it was at the time it was very popular. We were building it very quickly, and then the long story short, the housing market tanked, and then the financial market tanked in 2008, 2009, when they were basically giving out mortgages to people's dogs. So without we talk about it there, but without getting into detail, that affected the business in a negative way. But yeah, we were on 35, 40 cruise ships at one point.
The cruise business is fascinating to me. We don't have to get into all of that, but that is.
Well, I can tell you some other time about the cruise business, because not only did I work on a cruise ship where I actually met my wife, who was also working on a cruise ship, but my brother is very high level up. Well, he's not anymore in the cruise ship business. By getting us on cruise ships, we learned a lot about the inside baseball. So you ever want to have a conversation sometime, we could follow that up, because it's an interesting business for sure.
We have someone on staff who he's a musician, and he played on cruise ships, and he has some stories that, again, it's wild to me. And I've actually seen documentaries of stuff when it comes to cruise ships, and yeah, the stuff they are able to pull off, and the way they are able to pull it off on cruise ships is very fascinating.
Well, it's totally changed. Back in the day, 40 years ago, they encouraged the male staff to try to hit on the female passenger women, and because they thought that would give them a good experience. But obviously, you can't. You certainly can't do that in 2024, let alone 2020. But this is the 1980s, and things were different, and so it got pretty wild back in the day, but that stuff has been gone for a while now, and everybody got to stay in their own lane, and not be in a social situation with passengers and vice versa.
Oh, it's complete carny, for lack of a better term.
Oh, 100%.
So, yeah. As we start to wind down here, David, I know we have a lot to cover, but we have kind of limited time on here. I do want to ask, because I don't know if you saw this news about Jade Chung. She is leaving Impact at the end of the year, and so I feel like natural question: is there any interest in a return from you?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I talk about my reaction in the book, to when I stopped doing it, and I don't want to give away the story, but on one level, the travel was just really tough at the end. But I love being there and doing my job and hanging out with the guys, before the show and after the show, having a cocktail or two. I don't know. It would be hard to say no. The good news is I don't think they're going to call me. So, I mean, I don't think they will. They went younger and prettier for a reason. And when I say prettier, I don't mean just a woman. There are a lot of prettier men out there, that younger and prettier men than myself at the moment. But I don't know. I mean, anything could happen. It would be hard to say no, but I guess my heart would say yes, and my brain would say, yeah, it's about, you know what, you're done. So I don't know. But again, let me say that I don't expect to be called. I'm not calling anybody to fetch for jobs. So if they reach out to me, we'll see what happens.
In your opinion, Dave, what makes a good ring announcer? Like, what are some things that you try to keep in mind to be as good as you were throughout your career?
Well, I talk about that in the book when I was training Jade, because I knew about 6 months before my time was over that I was going to be handing the microphone to Jade. So I went all in on passing the mic, so to speak, and teaching her. And there's a couple things that are more difficult than you would think. Having to announce to the crowd while they're talking to you in the truck in your ear takes some getting used to. If I could speak for Jade, that was one of the things she felt she had a harder time adjusting to. Um, but my thing was always I'm not there to be a star. I'm there to host an event, whether it's a television taping or a pay-per-view or a house show. I'm there to host an event. I'm your host. I want you to have as much fun as you can. I want you to be as lively as you can for TV. I want you to I want to keep you, updated with what's coming still to come. So, because sometimes these shows get long, and I'm there for the fans, and everything else is just, if my voice is on, if I'm in the ring, if whatever it is, it's just gravy. My job is to be there for the fans.
Who are some of your favorite ring announcers, like whether they're like all time or people currently that you see?
I'll tell you, I mean, Howard Finkel is the absolute best ever. There's nobody close. No disrespect to anybody else. There's like Howard, and then there's like, the second and third and fourth places are way down the pike. Um, I used to watch Madison Square Garden shows on the MSG network at the beginning of cable television. And the best part, and I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and they agree with me. The best part of the show is before the last match, which wasn't the main event, by the way. Back in those days, the main event went on before intermission. But before the last match, which is usually some kind of Andre feature or 10-man tag team match, something that would get people to stay till the end and pique their interest. But uh, Howard Finkel would run down the show for next month at Madison Square Garden. I mean, the entire show, like, 9, 10 matches. And, the way he would build it, and the way, he would get, he'd start, ladies and gentlemen, SD Jones takes on Rene Goulet, but that's not all. And then he'd build it up, and he could crescendo it at the end. So even if it sucked, you went like, oh my God, that's great. And then you realized it sucked like 2 minutes later. Like, one time he would go, and ladies and gentlemen, WWF champion Bob Backlund will defend his title next month in Madison Square Garden against Alpha the Samoan. And you'd be like, oh my God, that's great. Just because how he did it. And then you think about it, and you'd be like, no, that's kind of nothing against Alpha the Samoan, but he was in a tag team. So he's not winning the world title at Madison Square Garden. So, but he was so good at that he could get you every time. And I mean, that's still to this day, if I could ever find that on video, that's must-watch television. He was just so good at it. So I think Samantha Irving was on to something very special. She put an emotion into it that I've never seen before. I had reached out to her, and we had a couple of chats on Twitter, and that actually sent her a book. She was on to something very special that I don't know could be replicated, but she chose to go a different path, and that's not everybody wants to grow up and be a Hall of Fame ring announcer. Or a famous ring announcer. From what I understand, she's a performer and has a great voice, and so sometimes people, that's their ultimate goal, as my ultimate goal, and not to be a Hall of Fame, because that's not going to happen, but to be, make a living and be able to live my dream as a professional ring announcer on a high level. But others is a means to an end. If she could take that notoriety and use it to become to sign a record deal or a Broadway show or whatever. God bless her.
David, we want to thank you for joining us here tonight. Let everybody know where they can get the book at Sitting Ringside Volume 2, and let everybody know where they can follow you at.
Well, you can still get the first one if you haven't. And Just FYI, there's a ton of extra content in there, bonus content. There's the XWF business plan that I don't even know how I got. But very few people have seen it. And it goes into dollars and cents and talent pay and office pay and production pay. And if you ever wanted to see how you put together a business plan to start a wrestling company, we got that for you. That's included in the book. We got the Flair's last match entire format that I don't think's ever been released. Bunch of Thunder, a bunch of TNA formats. We got the format from Impact when Kenny Omega took on Rich Swann in that big match to combine the titles. So a ton of great content. And they go to davidpenzerbook.com, all one word. Lots of cool bundles and stuff that you could get extra stuff to get signed at conventions and trade shows and wrestling events. And then you could also just go to amazon.com and check it out. Gotten great reviews, initial reviews, and this will 99.9% be the last one. So if you have any interest, be sure to pick it up. And like I said, both of these books are inside baseball on the wrestling business. The things that you always wanted to know, the formats you always wanted to see but never did. And so that's what we provide, along with a little of my insight and my story.
Folks, again, the link is davidpenzerbook.com. You can also go to Amazon. I believe also GuyEvansBook.com will get you
it's
there.
It's GuyEvansBooks.com.
Okay, so you have
David Penzer book.
He has books.
And then Guy Evans Books.
There you go. Guy Evans Books, davidpenzerbook.com. Also Amazon. You can follow David on Twitter at David Penzer if you'd like to do that. Keep up with him. Again, we really appreciate you joining us. The links are below, everybody, so you could just click the link. That'll get you directly there. David, thank you again for joining us tonight.
Hey, you guys are blessed. Anytime you want me to come on and tell stories, I'm happy to fill some time for you. And tell Sean Ross Sapp that as bad as my connection was, his was worse.
Okay, well done.
And he runs the show. So what's up with that?
Allegedly. Yeah, he kind of lets us do what we want sometimes.
The face of the franchise?
Yeah, he is. What can you do? Anything I do wrong, he gets blamed. Sean does. So I use that to my advantage. David, thank you again for joining us here tonight. Guys, we'll be right back here on the Spotlight. We're back. Big thank you to David Penzer for joining us. As you could tell, we had issues with the first half of that. That was recorded on Tuesday night, and then we recorded the second half on Wednesday night. Typically, we use StreamYard. You could potentially tell that David had some lag issues with the StreamYard, so we recorded the second half on Zoom. But big thanks to David for making time for us on both nights to get that done and get a good interview for you guys. Again, everybody can check out the links below. davidpenzerbook.com can get Sitting Ringside Volume 1, Sitting Ringside Volume 2. You can just get the book as it comes, or you can get a bunch of extras. There's like 5 or 6 different kind of packages you can order where you can get some collectibles, some extras, some signings on there. So go check that all out, davidpenzerbook.com. We appreciate David again for joining us on the show. Guys, we won't be back next week, actually. We will not be back next week. No episode of The Spotlight next week. But I will be back tomorrow on In the Weeds with Joel Pearl at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then next week, schedule's kind of up in the air with everything. It's Christmas. Christmas is next Wednesday. So a lot going on with the holidays and everything. I think I'm potentially traveling next week. So we got a lot going on, and I'll keep everybody updated when I know more. But one thing I can tell you, In the Weeds tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. Rob and Maggie coexisting tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for hanging out with us in the chat this morning. Everybody enjoy your Thursday. Happy holidays to everyone. If this is the last time you hear my voice since you only listen to the Spotlight, Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year to everybody. We'll see you in the new year. And if you listen to me on other shows, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.